Chapter 358. Yoon Jong-hee, you're a pervert. You're quite the character. Song Ching-shu sneered. Seeing that Song Ching-shu had no intention of moving, Yoon Jong-hee's courage grew. Thank you for your compliment, Your Excellency. After saying that, he kept an eye on Song Ching-shu's movements while reaching out to touch Min-ro's face. Wow, it's so soft and smooth. Hero, sure, your wife has lived with you for so many years. I didn't expect her skin to be as smooth as a young girl's. I'll gladly accept it. Yoon Jong-hee's heart skipped a beat when he felt Min-ro's skin. He looked anxious. Yoon Jong-hee, if you don't let go, I'm afraid you're going to suffer, Song Ching-shu said calmly. Yoon Jong-hee spat in disdain. Do you think I'm easy to bully? If you could move, would you let me get close to Madam Sure? I'm not letting go. I want to play with her breasts. Come hit me if you can. Yoon Jong-hee turned around and reached out to touch Min-ro's chest. Little girl, let big brother dote on you. Seeing his disgusting expression, Min-ro gritted her teeth and turned her face to the side. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Don't cry. Big brother knows how to be gentle with women. Yoon Jong-hee held Min-ro's chin and turned her head around. Her delicate face, which was covered in tears, made him dumbfounded for a moment. Fourth brother, stop dilly-dallying. Duan Yanqing only wanted to use this opportunity to see if Song Ching-shu was poisoned. Seeing that Yoon Jong-hee didn't get to the point, he grew impatient. Yes, boss. Noticing the sharp glint in Duan Yanqing's eyes, Yoon Jong-hee was startled. He quickly moved closer to Min-ro and kissed her wet lips. Duan Yanqing had always been cautious. Seeing Song Ching-shu's calm expression, he was worried that Song Ching-shu was using this opportunity to numb him and kill everyone while they were close. I don't believe you can stand by and watch this chivalrous woman be humiliated. Duan Yanqing sneered. If Song Ching-shu allowed the famous divine ice sword to be humiliated in front of him while he still had the strength to spare, Shi Qing would definitely hate him to death, and Miao and Feng would also despise him in her heart. At that time, the four villains would go out and exaggerate the story, and the reputation he had worked so hard to rebuild would be destroyed in a day. Therefore, Duan Yanqing needed Yoon Jong-hee to test Min-ro's abilities to determine if Song Ching-shu was really poisoned. If Song Ching-shu still did not make his move and bluffed, Duan Yanqing would seize the opportunity to take his life. With Song Ching-shu's head, presumably he would be able to become Kangxi's honored guest, which would be of great benefit to him in seizing back the throne. Just as Yoon Jong-hee's ugly face was about to touch Min-ro's smooth face, a sharp and clear sound pierced through the air. Yoon Jong-hee thought it was Song Ching-shu and was scared out his wits. He used his lightness skill to run back. But he was too late. Yoon Jong-hee felt a burning pain on his face as soon as he stood beside Duan Yanqing. He touched his face and found it was covered with blood. Good whip skill. Duan Yanqing's eyes lit up when he saw the woman in white walking out of the room. She held a long black whip in her hand. It was the weapon she used to attack Yoon Jong-hee. I told you, if you don't stop, you will suffer. You'll suffer if you don't listen to your elders. You already have a wretched appearance, and now that you've been disfigured, you're simply as ugly as you can be. Song Ching-shu shook his head and ridiculed Yoon Jong-hee. You are still talking nonsense. Icy Snow came to Song Ching-shu's side and scolded. Song Ching-shu's spirit relaxed, and he could no longer stand steadily. His body went limp, and he fell in her bosom. With a bitter smile, he said, a moment of carelessness. Unexpectedly, the boat capsized in the gutter. Miao and Feng was curious when she saw Icy Snow's appearance. Lady Hu, Miao and Feng's expression turned ugly when she noticed their intimate actions and recalled that they were hiding in the room with the door closed. Beautiful aunt, beautiful aunt. Miao Rulin didn't think too much. She giggled happily when she saw Icy Snow. She struggled to run into her arms, but she was too weak and almost fell to the ground. Lon be good. I will come and hug you after I beat these bad guys away, okay? Icy Snow couldn't help but smile when she thought about how she liked her so much after hugging her for a few days. Seeing Icy Snow's beautiful face, Yoon Jong-hee's eyes flashed with greed. He said sternly, since Song Ching-shu has been poisoned, We don't have to worry anymore. Hee hee, I didn't expect a beautiful girl to come out from a tender and delicious little sister. I'm really lucky today. Icy Snow knitted her brows. She raised her wrist and lashed the whip at Yoon-jong-hee's mouth. The whip was so fast that Yoon-jong-hee couldn't react in time. Seeing that Yoon-jong-hee's mouth was about to be smashed, Duan Yanqing snorted and blocked the whip with his Damascus steel staff. You're courting death. Duan Yanqing smiled slyly when he saw the whip wrapped around his staff. He pulled Icy Snow to his side. Icy Snow's internal injuries had just healed, and her body was weak. If it wasn't for saving Min-ro, she wouldn't have chosen the most unwise way to fight head-on. When she was pulled by Duan Yanqing, she let out a cry and flew over. Yoon-jong-hee finally reacted. Seeing that Icy Snow was pulled over, he stretched out his silver crane claw to seal her acupoints. Unexpectedly, Icy Snow didn't panic in the face of danger. She tapped the front end of the crane claw with the tip of her toes and circled behind them as light as a swallow. What a beautiful qigong! Duan Yanqing bent his body backward and dodged Icy Snow's whip, which was about to wrap around his neck. He revealed an envious look. It turned out that after Duan Yanqing's legs were crippled, the thing he longed for the most, apart from regaining the throne that belonged to him, was to recover his legs so that he could practice qigong like other experts. Yi Ernyang and Southern Sea Crocodile deity quickly attacked. Icy Snow's martial arts weren't inferior to Duan Yanqing's in her normal state, but it was a pity that she had just recovered from her serious injuries. Whether it was the strength or the angle of her attacks, she was slightly inferior. Thanks to the ancient tomb Sek's exquisite qigong, she could hold on for so long by using guerrilla tactics. Although Song Qing-shu was poisoned and felt weak, he still had his eyesight. When he saw that Icy Snow was at a disadvantage, he quickly gave her pointers. Moreover, the white python whip technique was passed down to Icy Snow by Song Qing-shu, so it was easy for him to give pointers. Sometimes he would ask Icy Snow to perform two unrelated moves that couldn't be connected. Icy Snow trusted Song Qing-shu very much. Although it was hard for her to understand, she still followed his instructions unconditionally. As a result, the effect was surprisingly good. The four villains roared in anger and were gradually suppressed by Icy Snow's whip. Yi Ernyang knew that it couldn't go on like this. While the others were blocking Icy Snow, she waved her hand at the place where Song Qing-shu was sitting and a hidden weapon shot out from her sleeve. Group 337294925. Chapter 359. Icy Snow had been on guard against anyone trying to harm Song Qing-shu. Seeing this, she hurriedly flicked her whip and knocked down Yi Ernyang's hidden weapon. It turned out to be a silver baby bracelet. But with this distraction, Icy Snow's defense was wide open, and she was immediately forced into a difficult situation by the four villains. Duan Yanqing seized the gap and tapped Icy Snow's shoulder with a solitary yang finger. Icy Snow screamed and hurriedly retreated to Song Qing-shu's side. She felt that half of her body was numb. She could no longer stand and fell into Song Qing-shu's arms. Icy Snow's whip technique was exquisite and her lightness skill was outstanding. Yi Ernyang was worried that there would be an accident. She hurriedly followed up and sealed all the major acupoints in Icy Snow's body. Yi Ernyang, do you want to know where your son who was taken away from you is now? Song Qing-shu quickly whispered as she approached. A strange look flashed in Yi Ernyang's eyes, but she didn't show it. She gave him a deep look and retreated to one side. Hey. Yoon-jong-hee looked at the two people who fell together and said, Little lady, I, Yoon-jong-hee, am really lucky with women today. Seeing Icy Snow naturally fall into Song Qing-shu's arms, Yoon-jong-hee's eyes flashed sharply and said, Let's get rid of you first. He almost died in Song Qing-shu's hands several times and was forced to swear a poison oath. Yoon-jong-hee hated him to the core. Now that he had the opportunity, he naturally wouldn't be polite. Bang! The weapons collided and sparks flew. Yoon-jong-hee looked at Yi Ernyang in surprise and said, Second sister, why did you stop me from killing him? Did you fall in love with this gigolo? I never heard that you like men. Yi Ernyang blushed and scolded. F asterisk CK off. I was just thinking about how to deal with him. Boss hasn't said anything yet. Why are you so anxious? Yu Laosin added fuel to the fire. That's right, fourth brother. You don't even put boss in your eyes. Don't tell me you want to be boss yourself. Yin Zhonghe and Duan Yanqing had never been on good terms. Yin Zhonghe glared at him and hastily explained to Duan Yanqing, Boss, I definitely didn't mean that. I hope boss can tell me how to deal with this person. Duan Yanqing nodded slightly and walked up to Song Qingshu with the help of his walking stick. Prince Song, I'm afraid you didn't expect to end up like this. Song Qingshu sighed softly. I had originally thought that I would die at the hands of Temujin or Zhang Wuji. Who would have thought that I would die at the hands of a thief? Duan Yanqing's face turned green. He turned around and said in a cold voice, Considering that you and I are old acquaintances, do you have any unfulfilled wishes before your death? Tell me. If this old man is happy, perhaps I'll agree to it. After saying that, he glanced at icy snow. Duan Yanqing's meaning was clear. If Song Qingshu asked him to let icy snow go, he would respect Song Qingshu as a hero and wouldn't allow Yunzhong to defile his woman. Boss, this woman. Yunzhong was startled and hurriedly shouted. Shut up. A sharp light flashed in Duan Yanqing's eyes. Yunzhong immediately kept quiet out of fear. Song Qingshu smiled. There was no fear on his face. Why don't Mr. Duan listen to what I have to say first? Maybe you won't want to kill me. Duan Yanqing didn't mind. Why don't you say it? But no matter how glib your tongue is, you won't be able to escape death today. That's not necessarily true. Song Qingshu smiled and recited a sentence. It sounded like a poem, but it wasn't. Duan Yanqing's expression changed drastically. Outside Tianlong Temple, under the Bodhi tree, a sloppy beggar, Guanyin has long hair. Everyone in the room was confused. Only Duan Yanqing could understand what he was saying. A trace of tenderness flashed in his eyes, followed by a trace of nostalgia. Suddenly, his expression turned fierce. He stared at Song Qingshu and asked, You know where she is? Not only do I know where Goddess Guanyin is, but I also know that she gave birth to a son, Song Qingshu said lightly. Everyone in the room was surprised. They didn't understand what the two were talking about. How could Goddess Guanyin have a son? They even thought that Song Qingshu was blaspheming against the gods. Son, Duan Yanqing almost lost his footing. His throne was taken away. He lived in the dark mud and lived a life worse than a dog's. Goddess Guanyin, who gave alms outside Tianlong Temple, was the only light in his life. Now that he heard that he might have a son, his heart was suddenly filled with mixed feelings. He was happy and at a loss. Boss. The other three villains saw Duan Yanqing suddenly stunned and hurriedly called out. Duan Yanqing finally came to his senses. He looked into Song Qingshu's eyes. Where are they? Song Qingshu shook his head. If I tell you now, won't I be seeking my own death? Duan Yanqing understood that Song Qingshu was planning to use this secret to make a deal with him. His complexion suddenly changed. It was obvious that he was struggling in his heart. On one hand, he wanted to know the whereabouts of the celestial concubine. On the other hand, he was worried about Song Qingshu's martial arts. If he offended him this time, how could they survive after he recovered? Yi Ernyang hesitated for a moment. Suddenly, she stepped forward and said, Boss, we have never had any enmity with this Prince Song. After he assassinated Kangxi, his reputation in the martial arts world is extremely high. Why should we make this an unprofitable deal? It turned out that Yi Ernyang thought of what Song Qingshu said just now. She understood that he probably knew the whereabouts of her missing child. She was worried that Duan Yanqing would kill him directly. She might not be able to find her son for the rest of her life. As for whether Song Qingshu would find trouble with him after he recovered, it was not worth mentioning in front of the power of a mother's love. Of course, all of this couldn't be known by the other three evildoers. Therefore, Yi Ernyang found another plausible reason. I say, Ernyang, this is not like your character. Could it be that, as fourth brother said, you have taken a fancy to this gigolo? The southern sea crocodile deity had no shrewdness. He said whatever he thought of carelessly. That's right, boss. If we let this guy go, I'm afraid we will die miserably in the future. His martial arts are so high. Yunjong, he was scared out of his wits. Among the four evildoers, he was the one who had offended Song Qingshu the most. How could he let Song Qingshu escape? Song Qingshu snorted and said, "Even if Song Mao wants to take revenge in the future, he will only look for you." Duan Yanqing hesitated for a long time. Finally, he made a decision. He laughed coldly and said, "Prince Song, your martial arts are too high. I don't dare to let the tiger return to the mountain and leave behind future troubles. As for that goddess of mercy, since I know that what happened that year was not a dream, I naturally have a way to find out who she is. You don't have to worry about it. Since you told me this news before you died, I will kill your female companion and bury her with you. I guarantee that she will not be defiled. Then I really have to thank you." Since things had come to this, Song Qingshu didn't want to say anything more. He turned his head to look at icy snow. He saw that she was also looking at him tenderly and sweetly. The two looked at each other and smiled. Duan Yanqing raised his walking stick and propped it on Song Qingshu's chest. "Do you have any last words? Can I trouble Mr. Duan to pass a message to the Amei faction? Tell their faction leader not to die for me," Song Qingshu said with a smile. "Bah, who will die for you?" A tender reprimand immediately came from outside the door. 3372-94925. Chapter 360. A group of female disciples entered one after another, drawing their swords and surrounding the four great evildoers. Then, a graceful and elegant young girl slowly walked in. Duan Yanqing saw that these women were dressed in the Amei faction's uniform and frowned. "Are you the leader of the Amei faction, Miss Zhou?" "Yes, I am. Nice to meet you, Mr. Duan." Zhou Zhiruo's voice was cold and emotionless. No one could tell what she was feeling. Wow, so many women came at once. Yin Zhanghe can't take it. Looking at Zhou Zhiruo's face, Yin Zhanghe laughed presumptuously. Zhou Zhiruo's face darkened. Yi Ernyang reminded her, "Be careful, fourth sister." But it was too late. Zhou Zhiruo moved like a ghost and appeared in front of Yun Zhonghe. She stretched out her hand and grabbed him. Her 5 fingers were as white as jade with a layer of strange crystal color. It was the famous 9-yin white bone claw. Yun Zhonghe hurriedly used his lightness skill to dodge to the side. Although his throat was avoided, his shoulder was still grabbed by Zhou Zhiruo. His skin was torn and blood gushed out. Zhou Zhiruo was about to destroy his arm, but Duan Yanqing had already reacted. He raised a steel staff and stabbed at her back. She kicked Yun Zhonghe's body, and using the recoil, she swung her waist and moved 3 feet away in the air. Duan Yanqing complained his heart. In order to save Yun Zhonghe, he used the strategy of besieging Wei to save Zhao. Because he was afraid of Zhou Zhiruo's swift movement, he didn't hold back his strength. He didn't expect that Zhou Zhiruo would move to the side, so he stabbed at Yun Zhonghe. Yun Zhonghe had just escaped death from Zhou Zhiruo. Before he could take a breath, he found the steel staff in front of his chest. He was so scared that he almost pissed his pants. Duan Yanqing thought that he needed help to seize the throne. Although Yun Zhonghe's death was not a pity, he was a rare confidant. It would be a pity to kill him. In the blink of an eye, Duan Yanqing moved his iron staff a few inches away and stabbed it into the floor beside him, causing sparks to fly everywhere. Zhou Zhiruo had already taken the opportunity to attack. Now, the offensive and defensive situation had changed. Duan Yanqing was already unable to move, so he could only focus on the crutch that was stuck in the floor, using only one hand to deal with it. Yi Ernyang and the Southern Sea Crocodile deity saw that their big brother was in danger, so they rushed up with their weapons. Zhou Zhiruo untied the long whip and swung it in front of the two. The Southern Sea Crocodile deity used its crocodile scissors to block the whip, but it felt numb between the thumb and the index finger. Its whole body was shaken and rolled on the ground. One of Yi Ernyang's knives was knocked away, so she couldn't help but retreat. Her situation was slightly better than the Southern Sea Crocodile deity. The two of them were quickly surrounded by the disciples of the Amei faction who had reacted to the situation. They fell into a chaotic battle and were no longer able to help. Duan Yanqing got a chance to breathe and was about to take back the other iron crutch. He didn't expect that Zhou Zhiruo's long whip would not stop, and it took the opportunity to wrap around the iron crutch on the ground. Duan Yanqing felt a strange force coming, and his whole body swayed. He could no longer maintain his balance and rolled on the ground in embarrassment. Just as he was about to get up, his throat was grabbed by Zhou Zhiruo. Seeing the power of her 9-yin white bone claw, Duan Yanqing secretly shouted, "My life is over." But Yunzhong's voice came from not far away. "Stop." Zhou Zhiruo restrained Duan Yanqing. As long as she exerted strength in her hand, she could kill this peerless villain. Hearing Yunzhong's voice, she was not in a hurry. She calmly turned her head to see what he had to say. As soon as their eyes met, Yunzhong felt a chill in his heart. He put his silver crane claw on Song Qingshu's neck and hurriedly said, "If you dare to hurt our big brother, I will kill this little boy named Song. If you want to kill him, then do it." "What does it have to do with me?" Zhou Zhiruo asked curiously. Yunzhong was startled by her attitude, but he quickly reacted and said angrily, "Sect leader Zhou, you're looking down on our intelligence. Who in Jianghu doesn't know that Song Qingshu is your husband?" "Really?" Zhou Zhiruo stared at icy snow in Song Qingshu's arms, and her eyes turned cold. "Don't you see that he has another woman in his arms? How can such a heartless man be my husband?" Song Qingshu smiled embarrassedly. "I haven't seen you for several months, but I didn't expect your martial arts to improve so much." Icy Snow's pretty face was flushed. She felt wronged and embarrassed. There was clearly nothing between the two of them, but now it was like the mistress had caught the mistress. She wished there was a hole on the floor for her to crawl into. Yunzhong was also startled and subconsciously retorted, "Isn't it normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines?" Song Qingshu smiled with relief. "Yunzhong, you finally said something reasonable after such a long time." "Shut up," Zhou Zhiruo and Yunzhong said in unison. Yunzhong chuckled. "It seems that Sect Master Zhou still cares about your husband. In that case, how about we make a deal? I'll let your husband go, and you let our big brother go. We'll go our separate ways, and we'll forget about today's matter. I've always wanted to kill Song Qingshu, but unfortunately, his martial arts are too high. I've always failed on the verge of success. It's rare to see him fail miserably this time. If you want to kill him, then just do it. However, you've made it so that I can't kill my enemy with my own hands. After this, I'll make you suffer a fate worse than death." The cold wind blew in from outside. Zhou Zhuo's dress fluttered slightly, and her delicate body seemed to be swaying. But at this time, the life and death of everyone in the room were in her hands. She felt a chill in her heart. No one dared to treat her as a delicate little girl. Yunzhong's face suddenly collapsed. He felt that he couldn't let go of Song Qingshu or not. He couldn't help but look at Song Qingshu with a sad face. "Brother, what kind of wife is she?" Song Qingshu smiled faintly. Before he could speak, Icy Snow spoke first. "Miss Zhou, you're in the wrong. Song Qingshu is your husband no matter what. What kind of unresolvable hatred can there be between husband and wife that makes you want to kill him?" "Sect leader Zhou, is there a misunderstanding?" Minro had a good impression of Song Qingshu. She felt that he was as gentle as the clouds. She really couldn't figure out why Zhou Zhiruo was so heartless. "Yes, beautiful sister. Uncle Song is a good person," Miao Rulin said in a sweet voice. Zhou Zhiruo's face was gloomy. She couldn't say that it was because of that matter. In the eyes of outsiders, they were husband and wife. It was normal for them to do things between husband and wife. "I didn't expect you to be so charming. So many women are speaking up for you." Zhou Zhuo looked at Song Qingshu and sneered. Song Qingshu replied with a smile, "I've always been a man that women like. It's a pity that you seem to be the only one who can't feel my charm." Hearing his shameless words, Minro's face suddenly turned red. Icy Snow was also secretly shocked. Miao Rulin chuckled and said, "Shameful. Uncle is really shameless. Yunzhong, as long as you kill the woman in Song Qingshu's arms, I can consider letting you live." Zhou Zhuo pondered for a moment and suddenly said. Chapter 361. As soon as he said that, everyone in the room was shocked. He smiled strangely and said, Song, I was quite jealous of you. Every time I met you, you were accompanied by an outstanding beauty. All the flowers I've picked in my life can't even compare to one of them. Now I know that it's not that easy to enjoy the bliss of having multiple partners. You're talking a lot of nonsense. Can you kill Yunjong, he or not? Zhou Zhuo snorted coldly. Zhiruo, are you serious? Song Qingshu said in a deep voice. Do I look like someone who jokes casually? Zhou Zhiruo's voice was cold. It's fine if you don't kill her, but you have to die in her place. Song Qingshu's expression changed slightly at first, but he calmed down and nodded calmly. All right, you're willing to die for this woman? Zhou Zhuo was inexplicably angry. When my meridians were broken, you must know what happened between us. The world is so big, but there's no place for me. Fortunately, I met Icy Snow, who saved me and accompanied me to find a way to heal my meridians. I can't repay this kindness even if I die 10,000 times. I've already earned it by dying once. Song Qingshu looked at Icy Snow with tenderness in his eyes. Uncle, Icy Snow's heart trembled when she saw Song Qingshu's sincerity. She actually didn't call him uncle. You want to die for her, but I won't let you have your way. Zhou Zhiruo was irritated. She angrily rebuked Yun Zhonghe. Why aren't you making a move? Do you want to kill your boss? No. Yun Zhonghe hurriedly shouted, but he was cursing in his heart. The situation before him was obviously a fight between two women, but he had no choice but to get involved. Judging from Zhou Zhiruo's appearance, she would definitely be reluctant to kill Song Qingshu later. If he killed that woman, Song Qingshu might not do anything to his woman after he recovered, but he would definitely chase him to the ends of the earth. King Song Qingshu, why don't you just play with a woman's body like me? Why do you have to talk about feelings with a woman? You've caused me to suffer. Zhiruo, if you really do this, I'll hate you for the rest of my life. Song Qingshu faintly sighed. Zhou Zhiruo's heart felt as if it had been struck by a heavy blow. Hesitation appeared on her face, but when she recalled that she had traveled thousands of miles to find him, only to find that he was deeply in love with another woman, her hesitation was quickly replaced by anger. She coldly said, I remember saying this to you before. It turned out that the Golden Snake Camp had sent out invitations to the heroes. The Amei sect was a famous Orthodox sect in Jianghu. Naturally, they received the invitations as well. Since Zhou Zhuo left the Forbidden City last time, she had been practicing Nine Sutra in closed-door training in order to avenge Song Qingshu one day. Zhou Zhuo couldn't sit still anymore when the disciples of her sect brought the news of the Golden Snake Camp. Because she knew Song Qingshu's plan in the Forbidden City last time, she knew that Song Qingshu was likely to be in Shandong during this period of time. With a surge of passion, she brought her disciples all the way here, saying that she wanted to help the Golden Snake Camp. However, she had other expectations in her mind. Unexpectedly, when she saw Song Qingshu, he was holding another woman in his arms. Song Qingshu was silent. Seeing Yunzhong approaching Icy Snow slowly, he suddenly said, Yunzhong, come closer. I have something to say to you. Seeing that Zhou Zhiruo didn't respond, Yunzhong bent down hesitantly. Song Qingshu whispered, Now that we have a common enemy, why don't we make a deal? You give me the antidote of the sorrowful wind softening poison, and I'll help you save Duan Yanqing. Then, I'll let bygones be bygones. What do you think? Yunzhong was moved. He had dealt with Song Qingshu several times before. He knew that Song Qingshu was a man of his word. Since he said that he would let them go, he wouldn't go back on his words. Besides, it was better to do a favor to Song Qingshu than to be used by Zhou Zhiruo and be hunted down by a Song Qingshu in the future. What are you guys talking about? Zhou Zhiruo returned from her daydream. She couldn't help but frown when she saw the two of them whispering to each other. Zhiruo, if you want to kill her, then do it yourself. Otherwise, I'm worried that I won't be able to hate you for the rest of my life because of my soft-hearted heart. Song Qingshu was well aware of Zhou Zhiruo's temperament, so he deliberately provoked her. As expected, Zhou Zhiruo snorted. She casually sealed Duan Yanqing's major acupoints and walked toward icy snow. She used her 9-in white bone claw to grab the top of her head. Just now, Yunjong he took advantage of the fact that his figure was blocking Zhou Zhuruo's line of sight to secretly take out the antidote and swirl it around Song Qingshu's nose. Although Song Qingshu's internal energy had not completely recovered, it was not difficult for him to subdue Zhou Zhuruo. However, Song Qingshu didn't make a move. He was just accumulating his strength and waiting. When Zhou Zhuruo's fingers touched icy snow's hair, Song Qingshu was about to make a move. However, Zhou Zhuruo suddenly stopped. She looked at Song Qingshu with a complicated expression. Seeing his solemn expression, Zhou Zhuruo sighed softly. "Even you think that I'll really kill her?" Immediately, he became dispirited and waved his hand at Yun Zhonghe. "Take your boss and get lost." Yunzhong was stunned. He didn't expect such an ending. An inexplicable anger rose in his heart, but he didn't dare to show it. He could only take a deep look at Song Qingshu. When he saw that Song Qingshu didn't say anything, he nodded knowingly and didn't expose him. When he was about to leave, the sound of weapons falling to the ground was suddenly heard in the room. As far as the eye could see, the female disciples of the Amei faction were paralyzed on the ground. Zhou Zhuo also felt that her strength was disappearing. She turned pale with fright. Sorrowful wind softener. It turned out that Second Mother Yi had secretly opened the bottle of grieving wind softener. Originally, after Zhou Zhuo came in, the situation of the whole room was under her control. Second Mother Yi didn't have the opportunity to poison Zhou Zhuo. It was a pity that Zhou Zhuo's mind was distracted just now, and Second Mother Yi found an opportunity when she was distracted. Seeing the situation reversed, Yunzhong was delighted. Before he could cry out, he suddenly felt numbness in his waist. He couldn't stand and fell. When he fell, he saw Song Qingshu's meaningful smile. Then he remembered that he had just sniffed the antidote. Naturally, he wouldn't be poisoned again. Yunzhong wanted to remind his companions, but his acupoints were sealed by Song Qingshu's fingers. He couldn't open his mouth at all. You young people only know how to talk about love every day. Now you regret it. The Southern Sea crocodile deity grinned. He came to Duan Yanqing's side and released his acupoints. "Hey, fourth brother, how did you get poisoned?" Second Mother Yi walked forward and pretended to give the antidote to Yunzhong. In fact, she wanted to take the opportunity to interrogate Song Qingshu about her son's whereabouts. When she walked to Yunzhong's side, Second Mother Yi suddenly felt dizzy. She hurriedly sat down with her legs crossed, but she was shocked to find that she couldn't use any internal strength. "What are you doing?" The Southern Sea crocodile deity, Yu Lao-san, shook his head speechlessly. When he was about to go over to see what was going on, he suddenly cried out and couldn't hold the crocodile beak scissors in his hand anymore. His whole body fell to the ground. Duan Yanqing was shocked and hurriedly jumped back. But when he jumped into the air, he suddenly found that his internal strength couldn't continue and fell down with a plop. "Which scoundrel dares to stab me in the back?" Duan Yanqing found that his internal strength had disappeared. He couldn't help but be shocked and angry. The people in the room were also anxious. If someone came in at this time, wouldn't it be easy to kill them? But after a long time, no one came out. Looking at the surrounding walls and windows, Duan Yanqing was confused. The Southern Sea crocodile deity couldn't help cursing. "Damn fatty, shut up." Hearing his curses, Zhou Zhuruo's pretty face turned red and then white. Duan Yanqing looked at her in surprise. "Did you poison them? You have the grieving wind softener, and I have the tendon softening powder. Let's see who recovers first." It turned out that when Zhou Zhuruo found out that they were poisoned, she quietly spread the tendon softening powder in the air with her sleeves. The four evildoers were caught off guard and were poisoned. Isn't the tendon softening powder the unique poison of the Ruyang Palace of Mongolia? How did you get it? Duan Yanqing was shocked and angry. He had fallen from heaven to hell twice in such a short time. Even though he had a strong will, he still lost his composure. "You don't have to worry about that." It turned out that when Zhou Zhuruo stole the tendon softening powder from Zhao Min, she found that the poison was colorless and tasteless. It was very useful, so she couldn't help but secretly research it. She managed to get most of its medicinal properties and made a batch of imitations. No matter how good a person's martial arts was, once he was poisoned by the tendon softening powder, he would lose all his qi and be at the mercy of others. Zhou suddenly thought of how she was at the mercy of others that day. She couldn't help but look back at Song Qingshu. When she saw that he was also looking at her with a faint smile, they must have thought of the same thing. Zhou Zhiruo's face burned, and she quickly looked away. After the initial shock, Duan Yanqing gradually calmed down. He found that although he couldn't use his qi, he could still move his limbs, but he was much weaker than ordinary people. Haha, the tendon softening powder is just SOSO. How can it compare with the grieving wind softening powder of our Shishia's first-class hall? Duan Yanqing struggled several times and finally stood up slowly, trembling. Zhou Zhiruo's face darkened. How can you still move? She tried many times, but she couldn't even move her fingers. The tendon softening powder and the grieving wind softening powder seem to have similar effects, but they are fundamentally different. The tendon softening powder makes people temporarily lose their internal qi, while the grieving wind softening powder doesn't target internal qi. It just makes people temporarily lose all their strength. After being poisoned by the grieving wind softening powder, no matter how deep your internal qi is, you can't use it without strength. Although you lose your internal qi after being poisoned by the tendon softening powder, the poisoned person can still move, albeit barely. Duan Yanqing smiled and slowly moved his iron crutch, approaching Zhou Zhiruo step by step. Song Qingshu was really depressed. He had just detoxified the poison of the grieving wind softening poison and was about to unleash the tiger from its cage. When it was his turn to play the pig to eat the tiger, he was hit by Zhou Zhiruo's 10 fragrant tendon weakening powder. This stupid woman. Song Qingshu cursed in his heart. If she hadn't been smart, he would have controlled the whole scene, and he wouldn't have been in danger again. Of course, Song Qingshu also understood that it was the right choice of Zhou Zhiruo at that time. It was unreasonable for him to blame her. Seeing Song Qingshu's eyes darting around, Duan Yanqing knew that these people were highly skilled in martial arts. Although he knew it was impossible, he was still afraid that they would force the poison out of their bodies. He hurriedly said, hoping to distract them, "I'm very interested in the game that sect leader Zhou played just now." Unfortunately, sect leader Zhou's heart softened in the end, so let me continue playing. Sect leader Zhou, let me try for you to see which one of you is more important in Song Qingshu's heart. Zhou Zhuo said lightly, "There's no need to try. Of course, I can't beat her." Group 337294925. Chapter 362. Duan Yanqing said curiously, "Sect Master Zhou is incomparably beautiful, upright, and young. You're also Prince Song's legitimate wife. Aren't you belittling yourself by saying that?" Zhou Zhiruo felt bitter in her heart. How could outsiders understand the love-hate relationship between her and Song Qingshu? In the past, Song Qingshu was certainly devoted to her. Unfortunately, too many things happened later. She understood in her heart that Song Qingshu probably cared more about that woman now. "Prince Song, this old man said before that in order to repay you for revealing the news about Goddess Guanyin, I'll repay you a favor. How about this? This old man will spare one of the two women beside you. As for who lives, it's up to you to choose." The distance that could be crossed in a single leap on normal days actually took such a long time now. Duan Yanqing was anxious in his heart, but his words were unhurriedly breaking down the mental defenses of the man and two women in front of him. "I can't bear to see either of them die. If I really have to choose, I'll selfishly hope that you kill them all. That way, I can hug them left and right on the road to the netherworld and won't be lonely." Song Qingshu laughed. "I just don't know if they're willing to die with me." Now that icy snow fell into Song Qingshu's arms, and Zhou Zhiruo fell on icy snow after falling, the three of them leaned on each other, forming the embryonic form of hugging one on each side. Icy Snow smiled faintly and didn't speak. Zhou Zhiruo wanted to rebuke him, but she opened her mouth and didn't say anything in the end. She said it. "Mr. Duan, I have a request before I die, Song Qingshu suddenly said. Speak. Duan Yanqing slowly approached. Although my love life with this sect master, Zhou, isn't very harmonious, she's still my wife. You'll definitely find the antidote on her body later. I don't want her to be humiliated after death. Can I find the antidote for you now? After you kill us, cremate us together so that we won't be humiliated by villains. After saying that, Song Qingshu glanced at Yunzhong. Yunzhong was anxious, but his acupoints were sealed and he couldn't speak, so he couldn't remind Duan Yanqing. Seeing Yunzhong's anxious eyes, Duan Yanqing only thought that he still had the idea of plucking a flower. He had never been fond of women. Moreover, he had the temperament of an ambitious and ruthless person. So he felt some sympathy for Song Qingshu, a grand top expert, who had fallen into such a situation. He said in a deep voice, "All right, I promise you." He thought that since Song Qingshu had been poisoned by the sorrowful wind softening powder, it would be useless to only get the antidote for the 10 fragrant tendon softening powder. Thank you, Mr. Duan. Song Qingshu turned to look at Zhou Zhirua and asked, Zhirua, where did you put the antidote? Zhou Zhirua didn't want to answer him at first, but she felt a chill when she thought that other men would come to search her body. Comparing the two, she felt that it was better for Song Qingshu to take it. Thinking that the antidote was placed in such a place, her face flushed and she said softly, "It's in my arms." "I'm sorry," Song Qingshu said respectfully, which made everyone in the room puzzled. They were husband and wife, so why did they still treat each other like outsiders? Song Qingshu struggled to raise his hand and stretched it into her arms. His movement was very slow. Zhou Zhirua felt that it was a very long time, so she turned her head away and didn't look at him anymore. When Song Qingshu finally put his hand in her lapel, Zhou Zhirua's whole body trembled. She pursed her lips and said, "Not there on the right." "Oh." Song Qingshu smiled awkwardly. Under icy snow's teasing eyes, he finally took out the antidote. "Give me the antidote." Duan Yanqing was delighted, but he suddenly worried that it might be a trap set by Song Qingshu. He took out the poison and disguised it as the antidote to trick them into taking it. When he was hesitating whether to let Lao San or Lao Si try it first, he suddenly heard Yi Ernyang's surprised voice. "You've been afflicted by the grieving wind softening powder. How can you still move?" Duan Yanqing cursed inwardly. Only now did he realize that he had overlooked such a big flaw in his complacency. At this moment, Song Qingshu had already taken the antidote. He laughed and said, "Because I also smelled the antidote of the grieving wind softening powder." Then he glanced at Yunzhong-he. Duan Yanqing was shocked and angry. He looked at Yunzhong-he and scolded, "You betrayed me?" Yunzhong-he felt bitter but couldn't say it. He thought with a wronged expression, "I didn't know that the situation would turn around so quickly." Song Qingshu gently flicked his finger, and Duan Yanqing felt as if his iron staff had been struck by a heavy blow. Since he was poisoned, it was already very difficult for him to maintain his balance. How could he still stand? He fell to the ground in a sorry state once again. "Don't worry too much, Mr. Duan. I promised Yunzhong-he that I would spare your lives. I never go back on my words. I'll give you the antidote after I save them." Song Qingshu didn't mean to release the tiger back to the mountain. It was mainly because, at his level of martial arts cultivation, it was much more important to cultivate the state of mind than the internal force. If he went back on his words and left a flaw in his heart, his cultivation would probably regress a lot. Seeing that Duan Yanqing was still willing to keep his promise and let them go under such circumstances, Duan Yanqing had a complicated expression on his face. "I've never been convinced by anyone in my life. Prince Song is the first. Thank you for your praise, Mr. Duan. However, our paths are different. When we meet again in the future, we will probably draw our swords against each other. Mr. Duan doesn't need to take today's feelings to heart." Song Qingshu first helped the two women up. He wanted to help them sit on a stool. Suddenly, he had an idea. He had the two women back to back, leaning against the corner of the wall. He had found the antidote for the grieving, paralyzing wind from the four villains. Thinking that he had suffered enough this time, he also took the grieving, paralyzing wind from them. He thought to himself, I should find a chance to let little Ling Su help me research it. If she can replicate it, it will be very useful. As for whether little Ling Su will listen to me, he, with icy snow, my future mother-in-law, saying so, I don't think she will dare to be disobedient. However, when Song Qingshu fumbled in Yi Earnyang's arms, Zhou Zhuo couldn't help but snort coldly. Men and women shouldn't touch each other. You were talking about others just now. How can you act like a gentleman? Can I take it that you're jealous? Song Qingshu laughed. Yi Earnyang is old enough to be my mother. I don't know why you're jealous. What's more, sex is emptiness, and emptiness is sex. I don't have sex in my heart, so my actions are naturally not lewd. Who's jealous of you? Zhou Zhiruo spat. It's just that our Amei sect is a dignified and upright sect. As the leader of a Amei sect, it's only natural for me to speak out against your filthy behavior. Is that so? Song Qingshu's face was full of smiles. Can't you see Icy Snow next to you is trying hard to hold back her laughter? No way. Icy Snow was startled. She hurriedly tried to clear her name. Holding the antidote and walking to the two women, Song Qingshu suddenly froze. Both women were poisoned. Who should he detoxify first? Chapter 363. Although it was actually a trivial matter in the eyes of modern people, etiquette was the most important thing in ancient society, and the order could not be messed up. With Zhou Zhiruo's black-bellied temperament, she was already dissatisfied with Icy Snow. If he detoxified Icy Snow first, it was hard to guarantee that she would not retaliate in the future. After all, Zhou Zhiruo's image in the original work was too deeply rooted in people's hearts. Zhu often claimed to be Zhang Wuji's legal wife, but in the end, Zhou Zhiruo ignored her biggest rival in love, Zhao Min, and chose to kill Zhu on Spirit Snake Island. If she held a grudge for today's matter, Icy Snow would be in danger. Icy Snow had always been aloof from worldly affairs. If he detoxified Zhou Zhiruo first, she would certainly not mind. However, she had always been worried about her identity as a widow, so it was quite awkward for her to be with him. If she thought that he valued Zhou Zhiruo as his legal wife more, it was hard to guarantee that she would not feel sorry for herself and make up her mind to distance herself from him. Then, the loss would outweigh the gain. Prince Song, why don't you detoxify us first? Duan Yanqing seemed to see his awkwardness and said, We have offended your friends just now. If they recover later, it's hard to guarantee that they won't attack us. Prince Song, if you stop them, it will hurt your friendship with your companions. If you don't stop them, you will go back on your promise. Why don't you let us go first, young master? Song Qingshu thought it made sense, and he did not have to worry about which woman to detoxify first for the time being. When he came to Yunzhong's side, Song Qingshu said in a deep voice, Originally, I wanted to tie your excellency to a tree trunk with a thunderstorm today so that you can fulfill the vow you made that day. However, the world is ever-changing. Since I promised to let you go, I naturally won't go back on my word. However, if your excellency continues to do evil, I'm afraid you won't be able to escape the calamity of being struck by lightning in the future. I won't dare. I won't dare. Yun Zhonghe's face was deathly pale. The last time he swore, it was just a trick. He thought that no one in this world would be so unlucky as to be struck by lightning. So he continued his profession of picking flowers without any psychological pressure. Now that he heard Song Qingshu say it, he knew that Song Qingshu had this idea for a long time. If he was tied to a tall tree, he might really be struck to death by lightning. Song Qingshu smiled and came to the side of the southern sea crocodile god. You Lao-san, I admire your honesty and straightforwardness. I'll detoxify you first. Thank you, Prince Song. The southern sea crocodile god cupped his fists. Yi Earnyang, your child's matter is of great importance. It's not convenient for me to tell you. However, you only need to know that he is grown up and is healthy. Don't harm other people's children in the future. Song Qingshu said in a low voice as he came to Yi Earnyang's side, blocking everyone's line of sight. Hearing that her ill-fated child had grown up healthy, Yi Earnyang's lifelong resentment dissipated by more than half. She said happily, Thank you, benefactor. I will never harm innocent children in the future. Song Qingshu sighed. Yi Ernyang had killed children for so many years. Even if she died 100 times, it would not be a pity. What was the use of repenting now? If everyone were to learn from the Buddhists, lay down the butcher's knife, and become a Buddha, wouldn't evil go unpunished? However, he was clear about Yi Ernyang's future fate. He knew that she was doomed to die, so he did not want to interfere in advance. Mr. Duan, what I discussed with you in the Five Poison sect is still effective. Maybe we will have a chance to unite in the future. Song Qingshu detoxified Duan Yanqing while using secret voice sending. Nowadays, people in Jianghu cared too much about the difference between good and evil. They paid attention to the fact that good and evil were irreconcilable. However, Song Qingshu understood that what he wanted to do needed the help of all people in order to have a chance of success. Didn't Grandpa Deng say that whether a cat was black or white, as long as it could catch mice was a good cat? Of course, this theory was too shocking nowadays. Song Qingshu had no intention of changing people's opinions, so he had to be careful. Duan Yanqing's eyes brightened. Dali was now prosperous, and the people were at peace. Duan Jingming and Duan Zhengchun had won the hearts of the people. His hope of regaining the throne was getting slimmer. However, if he had the help of a master like Song Qingshu, everything was still uncertain. Young Master Song, you don't hold grudges and are open-minded. I admire you. Duan Yanqing laughed and quickly lowered his voice to remind Song Qingshu. Those two women were poisoned by two kinds of poison at the same time. Mister, if you give one the grief-softening wind potion and the other the 10 fragrant tendon softening powder, I don't think you will offend anyone. It turned out that Duan Yanqing had roamed Jianghu for decades. He had seen through Song Qingshu's dilemma and gave him some advice. The older, the wiser. Song Qingshu was overjoyed and secretly gave him a thumbs up. After the four villains left, Song Qingshu detoxified the two women according to Duan Yanqing's method. Then, he handed a bottle of grief-softening wind potion to Zhou Zhiruo. Zhiruo, quickly go and save your disciples. Zhou Zhiruo snorted and snatched it. Without thanking him, she got up and detoxified the disciples one by one. Song Qingshu and Icy Snow also detoxified Miao Renfeng and her daughter, as well as Shi Qing and his wife. Shi Qing had always abhorred evil, as if it was his personal enemy, so he was displeased that Song Qingshu had released the four evildoers, especially the perverted Yun Zhonghe. However, he knew that his life had been saved by Song Qingshu, so he didn't know what to say, and a hint of displeasure appeared on his face. Min Ro and Shi Qing had been husband and wife for many years. She knew what he was thinking when she saw his expression. Worried that her husband would offend Song Qingshu, who was highly skilled in martial arts, she quickly said, "Thank you, Prince Song, for saving us. Otherwise, we would have called it quits today." The process was full of twists and turns. Song Mao is really ashamed for making Madame Shi worried. Seeing Min Ro's pale face, Song Qingshu knew that she had been badly frightened by Yun Zhonghe. A chivalrous woman like her was not afraid of death when she roamed the Jianghu, but she was afraid that her innocence would be sullied by a perverted thief. In addition, Yun Zhonghe was a pervert who threatened to ravage her in front of her husband. Ba, this young lady would probably have nightmares every day. How can you blame Prince Song for this? It's just that the sorrowful wind-softening poison is really hard to guard against. Min Ro had never seen such a powerful poison before. Her face was filled with lingering fear. It just so happens that I have obtained a few bottles from the four villains. I will give one bottle to Madam. You can use it to protect yourself when you roam the Jianghu in the future. Song Qingshu casually handed a bottle of sorrowful wind-softening poison to Min Ro. Min Ro's face turned red. She didn't expect that he would give her such a precious gift. It should be known that even an expert like Song Qingshu had been defeated by the sorrowful wind-softening poison. With this to protect herself, it was foreseeable that she would not have to face any life-or-death situations in the future. Min Ro was delighted, but she never had her own opinions. She always asked for her husband's opinion. She couldn't help but turn her head to look at Shi. Shi face revealed a strange expression. He said in a deep voice, "We, the black and white swords, roam the Jianghu and always put chivalry first. If we meet with misfortune, we can only blame ourselves for being inferior to others. If we win with poison, wouldn't it be a disgrace to our chivalrous reputation?" Although Min Ro was reluctant, she still obeyed her husband's opinion. She smiled apologetically at Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu silently cursed. If it weren't for him, Min Ro would have been taken by Yunzhong, he right in front of you. However, he understood that these Jianghu people cherished their reputation. They valued their reputation more than anything else. Moreover, Min Ro was so obedient that Song Qingshu didn't want to offend anyone. He withdrew the sorrowful wind, softening poison, and smiled faintly. Song Mao was rude. Prince Song had good intentions. Min Ro hurriedly waved her hand. She was worried that she would hurt his face. Song Qingshu smiled carelessly. He turned around and walked in front of Miao Renfeng. "Greetings, Hero Miao. Uncle, you're so powerful. You even beat the bad guys away." Miao Rulin clapped her hands excitedly. Miao Renfeng's face was gloomy. Although he was saved by Song Qingshu, he clearly saw him and Lady Hu walk out of a room. Earlier, Shi and Min Ro claimed that there was a couple in the room. When he visited the owner of the room, Lady Hu didn't say anything. If she didn't have a guilty conscience, why would she not greet her old friend, even though they were outside? I'm afraid these two were doing some shady business in there. A thought flashed through Miao Renfeng's mind. His face became even more unsightly. Hu Dao was a friend he deeply respected. When he saw that Song Qingshu and his widow were together, if not for the fact that Lady Hu didn't seem to be forced, he would have pulled out his sword and killed Song Qingshu even if he knew that he was no match for them. When his wife Nanlan was cheated away by Tian Guinong's flowery words, Miao Renfeng hated the dissolute and lecherous men in the world, as well as fickle women. Now, Song Qingshu was the former in his eyes, and icy snow was the latter. Miao Renfeng cupped his hands expressionlessly. "Many thanks for Prince Song's help. I'll take my leave now." Then, he pulled little Rulin out of the room. Seeing her father's gloomy face, Miao Rulin didn't dare to act coquettishly. She could only reluctantly look back at the two. Miao Renfeng stood at the door and suddenly stopped. Without turning his head, he said, "Big brother, whose spirit in heaven? Lady Hu, you're on your own now." Song Qingshu was furious when he heard this. He wanted to reason with him, but icy snow grabbed his hand. Tears were swirling in her beautiful eyes. Her face was pale, and her lips were bloodless, but she firmly shook her head. Song Qingshu's heart softened. He knew that if he really started a debate with Miao Renfeng in front of so many people, Icy Snow would be in a difficult position, regardless of whether she won or lost. So, he couldn't help but pat the back of her hand to comfort her. Zhou Zhuo happened to see this scene. She sneered, "Let's go." Then, without turning her head, she beckoned her disciples to leave. Sigh. Song Qingshu wanted to urge her to stay, but Zhou Zhuo was determined to leave. She had no intention of staying, and her slender figure quickly disappeared into the night. The black and white swords looked at each other. Sensing the strange atmosphere in the room, they quickly took their leave. The room that was bustling just a moment ago was suddenly empty. "Uncle, quickly go after Miss Zhou. I'm fine here." Icy Snow wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes with her slender fingers and forced a smile. "It's hard to explain what happened between us. In her heart, I may not be her husband." Song Qingshu shook his head, looked at Icy Snow, and said, "Besides, why would I leave you at such a time?" Icy Snow couldn't hold back anymore. She buried her head in his arms and sobbed. Chapter 364. Icy Snow, if you didn't stop me just now, I would have scolded that Miao Renfeng. After Big Brother Hu passed away, only you, the orphan, and the widow tracked down the murderer for him. When your life was at stake, where was he, the so-called invincible man? Song Qingshu said indignantly. "I can't blame him. Although Big Brother Hu was poisoned to death, he was the one who injured him. so I've been holding a grudge against him. At that time, he offered to take care of us and teach fear martial arts. I rejected him without any hesitation and have been deliberately avoiding him all these years. Icy Snow wiped her tears with the back of her hand and said faintly, "Humph, our relationship is as clear as the sun and the moon, but he actually doubted your noble character. I can't take it anymore." Song Qing was filled with hatred. As the saying goes, not only did you not catch the fox, but you also brought trouble upon yourself. Being despised by Miao and Feng, he was naturally unhappy. He thought to himself that he would vent his anger on Nanlan when he returned to Yanjing City. In the past, Madame Miao abandoned her husband and son, which inevitably made him a little extreme. "Uncle, please don't take it to heart," Icy Snow advised softly. "It's fine if others doubt you, but Miao Renfeng actually doesn't believe you even though you're as close as a brother and sister." Song Qingshu thought to himself, if Miao Renfeng knew that he played with Nanlan's body like that, would he thank me for avenging him, or would he want to kill me? Miss Zhou and Uncle are husband and wife. Didn't they also misunderstand? Icy Snow couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. She finally calmed down. "We're only husband and wife in name." Song Qingshu sighed and told her about the grudge between Zhou Zhuo and Song Qingshu and Zhang Wuji. Icy Snow pondered and suddenly asked doubtfully, "According to what you said, she chose to marry you out of spite. But why did she seem to care about you a lot? Is that so?" Song Qingshu was stunned and smiled bitterly. "I'm afraid she wants to kill me." "Why?" Icy Snow looked at him with sparkling eyes. Her womanly nature ignited the flame of gossip in her heart. Song Qingshu hesitated for a moment, then told him what he had done to Zhou Zhuo in the past. "Sai, because of this, I've always felt guilty towards her." Icy Snow's mouth was so wide that an egg could be stuffed inside. "Heavens, I used to think that Uncle was a rare gentleman. I'm afraid even you despise me now, for some unknown reason." Song Qingshu felt that his chest was unusually stuffy tonight, and he had to get some words out. "What do you mean by you? Don't you know how to call me sister-in-law?" Icy Snow smiled. "Sister-in-law." Song Qingshu's voice was hoarse. Icy Snow responded sweetly, "I'm afraid Uncle doesn't only feel guilty towards Miss Zhou now. I don't know either." Song Qingshu shook his head. He realized that he actually fell in love with this woman who had an innocent appearance like a white lotus in the original work, but was actually sinister and black-bellied. He couldn't tell if this was the effect of the real Song Qingshu's remnant soul or his true feelings, so he didn't dare to face this problem all along. Icy Snow nodded thoughtfully and said, "Although I don't know why Uncle is so hesitant, I believe that one day you will recognize your true heart." Song Qingshu heaved a sigh of relief and looked at Icy Snow's snow-white cheeks. "Sister-in-law, now that you know my dark side, will you hate me?" Icy Snow reached out and stroked his eyebrows. She said softly, "At least Uncle has never shown me his dark side. What if I do?" Song Qingshu stared at her with a burning gaze. Upon meeting his gaze, Icy Snow's heart trembled, and she turned her head away unnaturally. "That depends on what kind of darkness it is. What kind of darkness can't you tolerate, sister-in-law?" Song Qingshu asked incessantly. "Unless you hurt Fei, I don't think I'll mind anything else." Icy Snow felt her cheeks burning. "For example, what I did to Zhou Zhuo." A strange glint flashed in Song Qingshu's eyes. Icy Snow panicked and quickly stood up. "Uncle, it's getting late. Let's pack our luggage and hurry on with our journey." Unexpectedly, Song Qingshu grabbed her wrist tightly. "There are still 2 hours before daybreak. Why are you in such a hurry?" Song Qingshu glanced outside the window with a smile on his face. "Uncle, why are you asking such a boring question?" Helpless, Icy Snow could only sit down again with a reproachful expression. "What's your answer?" Song Qingshu's eyes were filled with longing. Icy Snow sighed faintly. "I'm not Zhou." "Huh?" Song Qingshu was baffled as he didn't know what she meant. To his surprise, Icy Snow kept her lips tightly shut and refused to say another word. Song Qingshu suddenly reacted and was overjoyed. "Sister-in-law, are you saying that you won't blame me or hunt me down like she did even if I did that to you?" Icy Snow's delicate body trembled. She pursed her lips and said, I didn't say that. Song Qingshu stood up and pulled her into the house. It's getting late. Let's seize the time to rest for a while. Sigh. Icy Snow said hurriedly. I've already slept. You should rest well. No. Song Qingshu's tone was indisputable. Your internal injuries have just healed and you need more rest. Then you sleep on the bed. I'll just meditate on the couch. Icy Snow waved her hand in a panic. Sister-in-law, you sleep on the bed, Song Qingshu said. Then where will you sleep, uncle? Icy Snow asked hesitantly. Of course I'll sleep on the bed too. The corner of Song Qingshu's mouth curled into a smug smile. Icy Snow hurriedly shook her head. No, absolutely not. Sister-in-law, you took pity on me and let me sleep on the bed with you. Nothing happened, right? Sister-in-law, you must believe me, Song Qingshu said with a faint smile. Icy Snow lowered her head and her eyelashes trembled. Not today. I don't believe you today. Sister-in-law, I'm a little sad when you say that, Song Qingshu said gloomily. Icy Snow secretly spat. You're the one who has bad intentions. Unexpectedly, Song Qingshu admitted frankly, sister-in-law, although I don't know what kind of feelings I have for Zhozhuo, I'm very clear about my feelings for you. I really don't want to be a gentleman today. The other party's gaze was as though solid. Icy Snow revealed a struggling expression and finally sighed softly. Just this once. Don't pester me in the future. Song Qingshu felt as though the sound of nature entered his ears. He hurriedly nodded and carried her horizontally to the bed. Icy Snow's ears turned red. She buried her head in his arms and was unwilling to lift it up. Although she felt that Song Qingshu's promise was insincere, she needed a reason to convince herself, even if it was a reason that couldn't withstand scrutiny. Icy Snow held down Song Qingshu's hand that was unbuckling his belt and looked at him blankly. How shall we get along after today? What do you think, sister-in-law? Song Qingshu asked. How dare you call me that? Icy Snow was embarrassed and angry. She sighed when she saw the other party smirk. Let's forget what happened tonight when we wake up tomorrow and restore our previous pure relationship. Isn't that unfair to you? Aren't you doing it for me? Song Qingshu was dumbfounded. It's good that you know that. Icy Snow bit her lower lip. Her eyes wandered and looked at him charmingly. Song Qingshu's heart fluttered. He leaned down and murmured in her ear, How about this? When there are outsiders around, we will continue to address each other as uncle and sister-in-law. When we are alone, we will be like this. If I don't do it, won't I always be at a disadvantage? At this moment, Icy Snow couldn't help but feel lustful. Her cheeks blushed, and her voice lost its former coldness and was replaced with a hint of sweetness. Two people are in love with each other. How can it be measured by who is taking advantage and who is at a disadvantage? Song Qingshu smelled a sweet fragrance. His hands felt soft and warm, so he didn't have the mood to talk. He held Icy Snow's shoulder with his left hand and wrapped his right hand around her soft and slender waist. His voice trembled a little. Sister-in-law, uncle, Icy Snow's eyes were watery and sparkling. She reached out and hooked his neck. How could Song Qingshu hold back? He leaned forward and kissed her. At first, Icy Snow clenched her teeth and didn't allow him to penetrate her. Unfortunately, she only persisted for a while before she completely let go of her heart. She opened her teeth slightly, and the two of them kissed passionately for a while. Song Qingshu reached out his hand and suddenly looked at Icy Snow with a strange expression. Sister-in-law obviously wants it too. Why do you want me to beg you? Icy Snow blushed and said embarrassedly, Uncle, don't tease me anymore. Sister-in-law said before that I must never call you sister-in-law again when we are facing each other like this. But now I still want to call you that. Song Qingshu's throat was dry as he said with difficulty. Icy Snow rolled her eyes at him. She could naturally understand some of his evil thoughts. However, she wasn't any better now. A layer of misty mist appeared in her eyes as she said in a sweet voice, I also like to hear you call me that, Uncle, having been with her for so long. Song Qingshu had never heard Icy Snow call out to him in such a tender and charming voice. He hugged her even tighter, loving her tenderly. For a moment, His mind wandered, and he didn't know where he was. After Icy Snow let go of everything, she became even more passionate. She treated Song Qing-shu as her lover and served him wholeheartedly to satisfy his needs. The two of them were entangled together. After an hour, Icy Snow suddenly sighed softly. "I'm going to die because of you." Song Qing-shu hugged her from behind and whispered in her ear, "Are you angry?" Icy Snow snorted and couldn't help but grumble. "I told you in advance not to do it inside, but you still brought so many in. What if I get pregnant? How am I going to face others?" "That's a good thing. By then, I'll marry you openly. You won't be able to refuse me, right?" Song Qing-shu chuckled. "Your husband almost killed me today. Wouldn't it be more dangerous for me to be a concubine in your residence?" "I'm not doing it." Icy Snow giggled. Chapter 365. Why would I let you suffer? If I can marry you, of course, it won't be as a concubine, but... Song Qing-shu suddenly recalled Zhou Zhuo's mournful eyes as she lay on the bed and suddenly realized that he couldn't say the rest of his words. Icy Snow seemed to know what he wanted to say. She pressed her slender fingers on his lips and said softly, "Don't say anything unfaithful. Sister Zhou is also a pitiful person. Besides, my identity is awkward, and I've never thought of staying with you forever. I'll be satisfied as long as you can accompany me when I miss you. You know I don't care about your identity." Song Qing-shu grabbed her hand and felt that it was soft and smooth. His heart skipped a beat, and he looked at her sincerely. Icy Snow smiled faintly. "But others will care, especially after Fei learns about it. How will he view you, his sworn brother back then?" Song Qing-shu looked depressed and hurriedly corrected. "That time, it was Fear who took his father's place to become sworn brothers with me, not him." Icy Snow's face was full of smiles. Since I'm not ready yet, it's better to keep our relationship a secret." Seeing the embarrassed expression on Song Qing-shu's face, Icy Snow snapped. "I'm obviously the one who suffered a loss, all right? I'll let you take advantage of me, and you don't need to take responsibility. Why are you so unhappy?" "That's because you love me." Song Qing-shu wrapped his arms around Icy Snow's waist and moved his lips closer to her snow-white face. Icy Snow dodged and pursed her lips, pretending to be angry. "Don't call me that. But you clearly liked it a lot just now." Song Qing-shu didn't mind and kissed her wantonly. "Just now was just now. Now is now." Icy Snow pursed her lips tightly, and her voice seemed to be trembling. "It's almost time." Song Qing-shu pinched Icy Snow's smooth shoulders and gently pulled her into his arms. "It's almost dawn." Although Icy Snow had just been intimate with him, she still wasn't used to their relationship. Women's natural shyness made her subconsciously bashful. Song Qing-shu looked out of the window and shook his head. "It's not bright yet. You're lying through your teeth." Icy Snow also took a glance, and a faint blush appeared on her cheeks as she spat inwardly. Sensing that Song Qing-shu was on top of her, Icy Snow's heart skipped a beat. She felt weak all over. She stretched out her snow-white arms and hugged the man on top of her. Previously, Icy Snow allowed Song Qing-shu to do whatever he wanted out of shyness. However, she wasn't a little girl who didn't know the ways of the world after all. Under the dark desire, she gently swayed her soft waist, trying her best to match the man's movements. Feeling Icy Snow's response, Song Qing-shu enjoyed endless tenderness, but he still wasn't satisfied. He leaned over and whispered a few words in her ear. Icy Snow's starry eyes were half closed as she laid there lazily. When she heard his words, she gritted her teeth and said angrily, "What do you take me for?" Song Qing-shu knew that she wasn't really angry, so he quickly whispered a few more words in her ear. Icy Snow was dubious. "Really? Of course. You'll know once you try," Song Qing-shu assured her. Icy Snow's skin was dyed with a layer of enchanting rose red. She was in a daze. After being repeatedly seduced by Song Qing-shu, she couldn't help but show a hint of desire on her face. However, she quickly frowned and said, "But I don't know. I've never done that before." Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. If he wasn't familiar with Icy Snow's character, he would have suspected that she was deliberately seducing him. Seeing that even though Icy Snow's hair was disheveled, her brows were still as pure as usual, he was already convinced. He said complacently, "Big brother who is born with integrity, so he probably doesn't know how to play tricks. Now it's my turn." Fortunately, he was still rational and didn't voice out his thoughts. Otherwise, Icy Snow would have kicked him off the bed out of embarrassment. Under Song Qingshu's encouraging gaze, Icy Snow hesitated for a moment. Eventually, she couldn't resist his ardent gaze and turned her back shyly. "This is so embarrassing." Icy Snow quickly regretted it. Just as she was about to lie back down, Song Qingshu held her waist and moved closer. Icy Snow let out a muffled groan. After tasting the sweetness for the first time, she was actually looking forward to it. She laid there quietly with a blushing face. "Sister-in-law, your waist is so soft. Few women can bend their waist to such an angle." Song Qingshu couldn't stop praising. This little bastard is comparing himself with other women. The resentment that rose in Icy Snow's heart was dispersed by the gentleness of the man behind her. "This feeling is indeed. He didn't lie to me just now." Icy Snow's expression soon became cheerful and sweet. She didn't want to say another word. The next day, when the sun was high up in the sky, the two of them walked side by side on the official road. Icy Snow suddenly staggered and almost fell. As soon as she steadied herself, she pushed away Song Qingshu, who came to support her, and said angrily, "It's all your fault. My legs are still a little wobbly, and I feel like I'm floating when I walk." Recalling the charming scene yesterday, Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. He stretched out his hand and said, "Why don't I carry you?" Icy Snow was startled. She looked around guiltily and heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that no one noticed. Then, her face sank and she glared at Song Qingshu. "I told you not to be too intimate in public." Okay. Song Qingshu knew that she had always been thin-skinned, so he nodded with a smile. Icy Snow blushed and sighed faintly. "Sigh, I lost my mind last night and actually did something that betrayed Big Brother Who. If Big Brother Who can see me from heaven, I really won't have the face to see him." Song Qingshu understood her feelings, but he didn't try to comfort her. Suddenly, he had an idea. He took out a mask from his bosom and handed it to her. He said with a smile, "Will you feel better if you cover your face with this?" Looking at the silvery white mask in front of her, Icy Snow didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But she suddenly remembered that she might meet a lot of acquaintances in the next few days, and it would be more convenient to cover her face. Thus, she took the mask and put it on. "Sister-in-law, even if you cover your beautiful face, it's still hard to hide your graceful bearing. You're really captivating." Song Qingshu sized her up and praised sincerely. Icy Snow was a little happy to be praised by her lover. "No, you have to wear it too. Otherwise, it will feel weird for me to wear this ghost mask alone. I've meticulously crafted this mask, and it's entirely made to look cool and awkward. It can't be this ugly, right?" Song Qingshu was depressed. He was used to seeing Zorro, Batman, and the like wearing masks to look cool in movies and TV shows in his previous life. He couldn't forget about it after he came to this world. He thought that his current appearance was pretty good. Even if it couldn't reach the effect of Yangguo removing his lower body in front of Guoxiang 16 years later in The Return of the Condor Heroes, it shouldn't be a problem to deceive ordinary young ladies. I wonder what the fate of that pair of ill-fated lovebirds is like in this world. Song Qingshu was suddenly stunned. Too many things had happened to him in the past 2 years. He actually didn't have the time to investigate the progress of the plot of The Return of the Condor Heroes. I wonder if Yang Guo has lost his arm? Song Qingshu fell in a deep thought. Whether Yang Guo lost his arm or not had nothing to do with Song Qingshu. He was only concerned about whether the Dragon Knight's plot took place. If Yang Guo had lost his arm, then the two of them must have come down from Mount Zhongnan, which proved that the scene that left a shadow in the hearts of countless young men had already happened. If Yang Guo didn't lose his arm, then Xiao Long Nu might still have a chance to keep her chastity. The first thing people do when they transmigrate is to go to Mount Zhongnan to look for Xiao Long Nu, who is said to be extraordinarily beautiful. If they meet an upright person, they will save her from jeeping. If they meet a despicable person, they will choose to knock jeeping out and do it themselves. Why did I forget to go to Mount Zhongnan? Song Qingshu criticized in his mind. Uncle, what's wrong? Seeing his strange expression, Icy Snow asked curiously. Nothing. Song Qingshu smiled and returned from his daydream. Suddenly, he thought of something and asked, "What did you call me?" Icy Snow knew what he was thinking and said angrily, "You promised me that we would still address each other as uncle and sister-in-law." "I didn't say anything," Song Qingshu chuckled and said, "I was just worried that you would feel uncomfortable if you called me that." Icy Snow blushed and said, "It's a little weird." Song Qingshu laughed smugly, and Icy Snow quickly chased after him. Song Qingshu's lightness skill was outstanding, so he wouldn't let her catch him. However, to tease Icy Snow, he deliberately slowed down his pace. The ancient Tomb sect had always been known for their lightness skill. Icy Snow knew that Song Qingshu was teasing her, but she was indignant and chased after him with her lightness skill. Every time she was about to catch Song Qingshu, he would escape. She couldn't help but stomp her feet in anger. Icy Snow wasn't really angry, but it was as if she had returned to the days when she was a young girl, so she enjoyed the relaxing chase. The two joked and joked along the way. Soon, they left the Jin Kingdom's sphere of influence and entered Shandong. "Sister-in-law, let's find a restaurant to eat something," said Song Qingshu worriedly when he saw Icy Snow's temples dripping with sweat. "Okay." Icy Snow also felt a little tired and nodded. When the two walked into a restaurant, Song Qingshu gasped. This place had always been a place with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Wuxia novels were not deceiving. Most of the people in the restaurant were martial artists, probably because the Golden Snake Camp had recently sent out hero invitations. However, the most eye-catching people were two groups of people. One group sat in a private room on the east side, surrounded by a circle of strong warriors and a circle of 8 archers. They scanned the people entering and leaving the restaurant with keen eyes. At the table in the middle sat a beautiful and charming young girl. Opposite her was a graceful woman. They were his old acquaintances, Zhao Min and Princess Huazhen. Song Qingshu curiously sized up the people around her. He found that apart from Jinluan Fuang and the Xianming elders, Ada, Air, and Asan were missing. However, there was an itinerant monk and a green-robed old man. Could it be that Fan Yao, the right emissary of light, disguised as Ku Tuchuo? Could it be that Zhao Min and Zhang Wuji have reconciled? Song Qingshu's heart sank, but he quickly shook his head, knowing that he was overthinking. Although Fan Yao was the right emissary of light of the Ming dynasty and was also a first-class expert in Jianghu, he was still a long way from being a real top-notch expert. However, this itinerant monk had the demeanor of a grandmaster. His imposing manner was not inferior to Jinluan Fuang. As for the green-robed old man, he was expressionless, making people feel that he was unfathomable. Even the Xianming elders stood respectfully behind him. Hey, the Xianming elders are already among the top experts in Jianghu when they join forces. Even Jinluan Fuang may not be taken seriously by them. Who is this green-robed man? How can he make them so obedient? Song Qingshu was shocked. Chapter 366. Aside from these two grandmasters, there were 3 more people in Zhao Min's group. One of them looked like a zombie and held a mourning stick in his hand. One of them had a high nose and deep eyes. He had curly hair and a yellow beard. He was obviously a barbarian, but he was dressed in Han Chinese clothing. There were pearls around his neck and jade bracelets on his wrists. The last person was even more unique. Both of his legs were broken, and he relied on 2 crutches to support his body. With Song Qingshu's knowledge, he could tell at a glance that he was an Indian. He could almost smell the smell of curry from afar. "I'm sorry, I'm not discriminating. It's just that Indian curry is too famous." Speaking of which, I kind of miss the taste of flying biscuits. Song Qingshu thought to himself, trying to figure out who these people were. Based on the way they were dressed, they should be the 3 heroes of Mongolia, Xiaoxiangzi, In Kashi, and mimicking from the Return of the Condor Heroes. However, these three people were obviously Kublai's subordinates, so why were they in the Ryong Palace? This was something that Song Qing-shu didn't know. It turned out that Zhao Min's kidnapping was a very serious matter. With Princess Huajing there, Jinlun Fuwang and the others couldn't cover it up even if they wanted to. The news quickly spread back to Mongolia. Kublai and the Ryong prince were shocked. They all sent their masters to rescue her. So now, it could be said that there were many masters around Zhao Min. The old man in the green robe was the master of the Xianming elders. He was the famous Taoist priest of Baisu decades ago. Back then, Taoist priest Baisu fought with Zhang Sanfeng for hundreds of rounds. In the end, he lost one move. From then on, he lived in seclusion and studied martial arts. This time, he returned to the Central Plains to avenge the humiliation of losing to Zhang Sanfeng. The Duda was the master of the Shaolin Temple in the western region. He was the master of Ah-Er and Ah-San. Ah-Er and Ah-San surrendered to the Ryong Palace and were defeated several times by the masters of the Central Plains. As their master, he was also ashamed. So, he called them back and went out to meet with Zhang Wuji of the Ming Dynasty and other masters of the Central Plains. When Song Qing-shu and Icy Snow walked in from the door, Zhao Min looked up thoughtfully. She noticed Song Qing-shu's figure, and a trace of suspicion flashed across her face. Fortunately, Huazheng happened to come over and chat with her. She was distracted and did not ask her men to trouble him. There was another group of people sitting in the private room on the west side, surrounded by a circle of well-dressed warriors. In Song Qing-shu's opinion, their skills were not inferior to the Manchurian imperial bodyguards. At the table in the middle sat a man in embroidered clothes in his 30s. He looked thin and elegant. However, Song Qing-shu's cultivation was so profound that he could capture the gloominess in his eyes that he deliberately hid. Beside him sat two Grandmaster Realm Masters. One of them was tall, dressed in white, with a high nose and deep eyes. His face was yellowish-brown and full of heroic spirit. His eyes were as sharp as a sword. He was Ouyang Feng, an old acquaintance of Song Qing-shu. The other man had a pair of sharp eyebrows, a goatee, and an unruly look on his face. Song Qing-shu could not guess his identity. He thought that since he could sit at the same table as Ouyang Feng, his kung fu must not be inferior to Wester poison. Who on earth was this man in embroidered clothes who had two Grandmaster Realm Masters as his bodyguards? There were too many masters here, and Song Qing-shu was on his guard. But if he retreated now, wouldn't it be obvious that these people would find trouble with him? With a relieved smile, Song Qing-shu took Icy Snow's hand and found a corner to sit down. Originally, Icy Snow didn't dare to show anything to Song Qing-shu in front of so many people. But now that she was wearing a mask, she was much bolder than usual. Although her pretty face under the mask was flushed, she calmed down when she felt the heat from Song Qing-shu's palm. Sensing the tense atmosphere between the two groups, Song Qing-shu drank his wine calmly and flirted with Icy Snow, who was beside him, causing her to pout coquettishly. Although Icy Snow's face was covered by a mask, her figure was graceful. The skin under the mask was as fair as snow, and her lips were rosy and alluring. Many men in the restaurant swallowed their saliva at the sight of her, wishing they could go up and take off her mask to see what kind of face was under it. The man in embroidered clothes picked up the wine cup in front of him and drank it in one gulp. His eyes never left Icy Snow's soft and slender waist. He thought to himself, "It's a pity that the current situation is treacherous, and it's not advisable to make enemies everywhere. Otherwise, I could get my subordinates to secretly capture this lady and bring her back to the residence. Wouldn't that be wonderful?" On the other side, Lu Zhanke, one of the Xianming elders, had always been lustful. Every day, he stayed by the side of the incomparably beautiful Zhao Min and the valiant Huazheng. His heart was filled with fantasies all the time. Unfortunately, he knew his identity. These two incomparably noble women were not to be touched. Last time, because he flirted with Ren Yingying and caused Murong Jingwe to escape, Lu Zhanke was scolded by Zhao Min after that incident. It had not been long since that incident, So naturally, Lu Zhanke did not dare to openly flirt with icy snow. Glancing at Zhao Min's beautiful figure out of the corner of his eyes, Lu Zhanke thought to himself, back in Wannan Temple, when I received the help of the Ming dynasty, didn't I also play with the young prince's most beloved concubine Han? Concubine Han's body is fair and tender. That taste is really unforgettable. That little girl, Zhao Min, better not give me a chance, or I'll definitely play with her. Not only will I make Zhang Wuji a cuckold, I'll also be able to vent the hatred in my heart after working like a slave for so many years. Suddenly, two Taoist priests ran in a panic. One of the older Taoist priests said to the other, younger brother Yin, that witch's lightness skills are very good. Although he stole 2 horses and took the opportunity to shake her off for a while, I think it won't be long before she catches up with us. Let's quickly eat something and hurry on with our journey. The other Taoist priest had a blank expression on his face, as if his soul had left his body. He casually nodded his head and let his older brother pull and sit down. Song Qingshu frowned. Seeing that these 2 Taoist priests were wearing Chuanjin clothing and connecting the dots between their conversation, it was not difficult to guess that these 2 were Yin Zhiping and Zhao Zhijing. Who is this which they're talking about? Song Qingshu's expression did not change, but he was already carefully searching in his mind. When it came to witches, there were 2 most famous ones. One was Huang Rong, but now that Gui Jing and the Chuanjin sect were on good terms, Huang Rong would not make things difficult for them. The other was Zhao Min, who was sitting not far away. Who else could be called a witch? Could it be Li Macho? Waiter, what good food do you have? Quickly bring it to me. Zhao Zhijing shouted loudly. Only then did he realize that the atmosphere in the restaurant was strange. He immediately lowered his voice and said, younger brother Yin, this is obviously not a good place to stay. Let's finish eating and leave. Yin Zhiping grunted in agreement, not caring at all. He just kept looking behind him. A Mongolian Chinnu suddenly ran over to Zhao Min and Hua Zheng and whispered to them. Years ago, Genghis Khan invited Qiu Chuji to the western regions to meet him and teach him the art of longevity. Qiu Chuji traveled tens of thousands of miles to the west with 19 disciples. Yin Zhiping was the eldest disciple and was among them. Genghis Khan sent 200 soldiers to protect Qiu Chuji and the others. At that time, this Qinhu was just a small soldier and was also among the 200 people, so he recognized Yin Zhiping. Zhao Min's beautiful eyes shone with a strange light. In the near future, the Ruyang Palace would replace Alibuj in dealing with the Manchu Qing and the Jin Kingdom. The Chuanjin sect was located in the hinterland of the Jin Kingdom and was the largest sect in the Central Plains. Zhao Min had also heard about Genghis Khan inviting Qiu Chuji to the western regions. In her opinion, the Chuanjin sect and Mongolia had a long history. If she could pull the Chuanjin sect to her side, it would be much easier to deal with the Jin Kingdom in the future. Are these 2 Taoists from the Chuanjin sect? Zhao Min smiled sweetly as she looked at the 2 Taoist priests. Zhao Zhijing was surprised. He didn't expect such a graceful and beautiful woman to greet him with a smile. He didn't like women, but his Taoist heart was almost shaken by Zhao Min's bright smile. He subconsciously said, yes, I am Zhao Zhijing, and this is my junior brother Yin Zhiping. Yin Zhiping seemed to have lost his soul. All his attention was on the woman chasing them. Facing Zhao Min, he didn't look as bad as Zhao Zhijing. As soon as she heard that these 2 were the Chuanjin sect's 3rd-generation chief disciple and their martial arts expert, Zhao Min laughed even more happily. She stretched out her white hand in invitation and said, would the 2 Taoist elders do me the honor of drinking a cup of wine? This, Zhao Zhijing was obviously tempted. However, he thought that it wasn't easy to get rid of that haunting woman. If he delayed here for a while, she would probably catch up again. Zhao Min was quick-witted. When she saw the hesitation on Zhao Zhijing's face, she roughly guessed what was going on. She continued, are you hiding from your enemies, Taoist priest Zhao? Although the guards by this little girl's side can't be said to be invincible, they are more than enough to protect the 2 of you. What a big tone, little girl. On the other side, Ouyang Feng snorted coldly. Zhao Min's expression turned cold. The Vajra sect master seemed to have received her signal. He picked up a chopstick with 2 fingers and channeled the power of his mighty diamond finger, flicking it toward Ouyang Feng's face at lightning speed. The chopstick was like a sharp arrow, accompanied by a sharp whistling sound. Ouyang Feng's expression was solemn. Just as he was about to strike it down, the person next to him reached out and calmly grabbed the chopstick in the air. With a twist of both hands, the chopstick turned into powder. The Vajra sect master was secretly shocked. The chopstick was imbued with the power of his mighty diamond finger. If an ordinary expert overestimated their own strength and tried to take it head-on, their palms would be cut so deep that their bones could be seen. Who would have thought that the other party would casually grab it? Brother Chio's iron palm truly lives up to its reputation. Ouyang Feng revealed a strange expression and cupped his hands at the person. It turned out that the other party was the famous iron palm drifter, Chio Qianren. Brother Ouyang, you must be joking. Chio Qianren smiled nonchalantly, but his heart was a bit solemn. His iron palm could crack a stone like it was tofu, but his palms actually felt a faint pain when he caught the chopstick shot by the Tuchuo from such a distance. The other party's martial arts might not be inferior to his. Upon hearing the conversation between the two, Taoist Baixing said in a sinister tone, "Your Excellency is Western Poison of the Central Plains 5 uniques? What advice do you have for me?" Ouyang Feng asked indifferently. "If it weren't for that old fart Zhang Sanfeng accidentally injuring me in the past, would have been your turn to win the sword meet of Mount Hua?" Taoist Baixing showed a contemptuous expression. "You could try if you're not convinced." Ouyang Feng's mind had been in a mess for the past few years. After waking up, he had regained his former arrogance as Western Poison. Although the Taoist in front of him was not to be trifled with, Ouyang Feng was not afraid of him. Song Qingshu looked at the two of them with a smile that was not a smile, looking as if he was watching a show. Who knew that the restaurant would suddenly become quiet, and he couldn't help following everyone's gaze to the door, only to see a beautiful woman slowly walking in. Chapter 367. Jinlun Fuang had witnessed Zhou Buodong's martial arts and knew that Zhou Buodong's martial arts were slightly better than his. Moreover, he had fought with Guijing, the successor of Hong Qigong, one of the 5 greats. Their abilities were about the same, so Jinlun Fuang did not underestimate the 5 greats like Priest Baisu. After all, Ouyang Feng won the title of the world's #1 in the second sword duel of Mount Hua. His martial arts were probably not inferior to Zhou Buodong's. Jinlun Fuang was wary, but he could not wait for Priest Baisu to suffer due to his underestimation of the Mongolian experts. Naturally, he would not warn him. Just as he was gloating over the fight between Priest Baisu and Western Poison, he suddenly saw the woman who walked in. His expression immediately turned ugly. The woman wore a veil-like white dress, as if she was shrouded in smoke. Other than her black hair, her entire body was snow white. However, her skin lacked a layer of blood, making her look abnormally pale. The men in the inn were stunned. Even women like Zhao Min and Icy Snow were stunned. "This girl is so beautiful," Icy Snow muttered to herself. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. "She might be your junior sister." "Junior sister?" Icy Snow was stunned and looked at him in confusion. "If I'm not mistaken, she should be the current leader of the ancient tomb sect. Xiao Long knew naturally. She's your junior sister." Song Qingshu was already 100% sure in his heart. With such a beautiful and otherworldly appearance, aside from Xiao Long Nu, he really couldn't think of anyone else. Moreover, the temperament that she exuded was similar to Icy Snow, which strengthened his confidence. It should be caused by the ancient tomb sect's heart technique. Song Qingshu thought to himself. Xiao Long Nu is chasing after Yin Zhiping and Zhao Zhijing. According to the original plot, wouldn't she have been? Looking at the fairy-like girl before him, Song Qingshu could not help but feel a pang of pain in his heart. He looked at Yin Zhiping with an additional murderous intent. Song Qingshu had misunderstood. The reason why Xiao Long Nu chased after the two Taoists was not because she knew her chastity had been sullied, but for another reason. It turned out that with the butterfly effect brought about by Song Qingshu's time travel, Ouyang Feng did not wander around the world crazily like in the original work. Instead, he was kept by Hong Antong on the Divine Dragon Island for a long time and served well as his last trump card. Without Ouyang Feng, on Mount Zhongnan, Xiao Long Nu's pressure points would not be sealed by him, and Yin Jiping would not be able to take advantage of her. Yin Jiping didn't get what he wanted, and the yearning in his heart became more and more obsessed. Zhao Zijing was often with him, so he naturally knew most of it. Yin Jiping was the next sect leader of the Chuanjin Seven Masters. Zhao Zijing thought that in terms of martial arts and knowledge, he was above Yin Jiping, so he had a bellyful of dissatisfaction. When he found out that Yin Jiping was infatuated with Xiao Long Nu, he came up with a plan. Not long ago, the two of them coincidentally met Xiao Long Nu at the same inn. Zhao Zijing secretly put an aphrodisiac in Xiao Long Nu's tea, and then encouraged Yin Jiping to take advantage of her. With this information in hand, Yin Jiping's position as sect leader would naturally be lost, and Zhao Zijing would get what he wanted. Unfortunately, the two of them never expected that Xiao Long Nu had a pure heart and few desires since she was a child. Moreover, she had cultivated her internal energy on the chilled jade bed, so the effects of the aphrodisiac were not that obvious. In addition, Zhao Zijing was an orthodox disciple of the Xianmen sect, so he had never come into contact with any powerful aphrodisiac. Therefore, although Xiao Long Nu felt uncomfortable all over, she didn't care. Yin Jiping saw that she didn't show any signs of being poisoned, and thought that Zhao Zijing was deliberately teasing him. The two of them immediately started arguing, and Xiao Long Nu happened to hear them. No matter how naive Xiao Long Nu was, she understood that the two of them were dirty, and in anger and embarrassment, she drew her sword. How could the two of them be a match for Xiao Long Nu? Fortunately, she had never killed anyone before, and in addition, she had no experience in society. She couldn't think of how to deal with the two of them, so they escaped for so long. Seeing that Xiao Long Nu was chasing after them, the two of them were scared out of their wits. Yin Jiping was all right. In his heart, if he could die under the sword of the woman of his dreams, then his life wouldn't be in vain. But to Zhao Zijing, Xiao Long Nu didn't attract him, so naturally, it would be best if he could live. Fuwang, save me. Xiao Long Nu's swordplay was too exquisite, and Zhao Zijing was in a panic, so he just happened to see Jinluan Fuwang. He had seen Jinluan Fuwang's kung fu at the Great Scattered Pass Hero Assembly. It was not below Guijing's. Zhao Zijing felt that the only person who could save his life from Xiao Long Nu's hands right now was Jinluan Fuwang. In front of so many experts, Jinluan Fuwang's reaction made Jinluan Fuwang feel a little smug, but he had seen Xiao Long Nu and Yang was combined swords, and he had almost lost his life under their swords. He looked outside the door with some lingering fear, but he didn't see Yang Gu's figure, and his heart was filled with uncertainty. Compared to Yin Jiping, Xiao Long Nu hated Zhao Zijing, the person who drugged her. She couldn't help but frown. Big monk, I'm only looking for trouble with this Taoist today, move aside. Though Jinluan Fuwang felt a little guilty, but in front of so many experts, he couldn't bring himself to be scared by a little girl's words. He could only laugh coldly. This Taoist priest Zhao is our Mrs. Friend. I hope Miss Long will be magnanimous. Even with Jinluan Fuwang's arrogance, he was shocked by the number of experts that had appeared recently. Now that he was not in Mongolia, he had to be careful and naturally didn't dare to reveal Zhao Min's identity. Zhao Min recovered from her initial shock and smiled sweetly. Taoist priest Zhao and Taoist priest Yin are the most outstanding disciples of the third generation of the Chuanjin sect. The Chuanjin sect has always been fair and just. Miss, do you have any misunderstandings with the two Taoists? Why don't you say it? I might be able to help both sides resolve it a little. Xiao Long Nu's face reddened, and she didn't have the nerve to say it out loud, so she shook her head. I will resolve our grievances myself. Yin Kashi was the best at observing people, and quickly guessed Zhao Min's meaning. He laughed and stood out, protecting Zhao Zijing behind him. Miss Long, This Taoist priest Zhao is a very good person. I'm afraid you have some misunderstandings. I'll ask him to apologize to you." Xiao Long Nu frowned, and her left hand unsheathed her sword, as fast as lightning, and thrusted it towards Kashi. Kashi quickly raised his whip to meet the attack, and only heard an ah sound. Zhao Zhijing, who was standing behind him, had already been stabbed in the shoulder. As soon as the sword came out, the inn was filled with astonishment. Even a master like Xiao Xiang Zi couldn't see how the sword came out. Only Song Qing Shu, Ouyang Feng, Taoist priest Bai Shun, and a few others could see that Xiao Long Nu's sword came out from her right hand, bypassing Kashi's body, and thrusted toward the person hiding behind him. Kashi was shocked and thought that even though the sword didn't stab him, he was powerless to protect Zhao Zhijing. Wouldn't he also lose face in front of Zhao Min? But he was very clear that Xiao Long Nu's sword was too fast, and he couldn't see the trajectory of her two swords. Facing the enemy like this, he would definitely lose. Thinking of this, he became even more terrified. He swung his golden dragon whip and called out, "Miss Long Nu, please be lenient." Who would have thought that Xiao Long Nu would ignore him? Her feet moved slightly, and she took 2 steps to the left. Kashi hurriedly followed, wanting to protect Zhao Zhijing. Who would have thought that a muffled groan could be heard from behind? He turned his head in shock and saw that Zhao Zhijing's left shoulder had already been slashed by the sword, and blood was overflowing. Most of the people at the scene were still baffled as to how the sword was stabbed. They only felt that Xiao Long Nu's swordsmanship was so exquisite and swift that not only could it come and go without a trace, but it also seemed to be able to attack the enemy from a distance. Little junior sister's swordsmanship. After hearing Song Qingshu's explanation, Icy Snow finally understood that Xiao Long Nu was her junior sister. While she was shocked by the exquisiteness of Xiao Long Nu's swordsmanship, she was also puzzled. She felt that Xiao Long Nu seemed to be using 2 different swordsmanship. One seemed to be the ancient Toon Sex Jade maiden swordsmanship, and the other seemed to be the Chuanjin Sex style. Is this the Jade maiden swordsmanship? Song Qingshu opened his mouth slightly. After Feng Qingyang's demise, he could be considered as the world's #1 swordsman. With his current insight, he couldn't help but admit that this swordsmanship was extremely exquisite and had very few flaws. In the hands of Zhou Badong and Guijing, the effect of left and right interfighting is limited. I'm afraid only in the hands of Xiao Long Nu can it double the user's strength. With a thought, Song Qingshu picked up 2 chopsticks and dipped them in wine. He tried drawing a square with his left hand and a circle with his right hand. "What are you doing?" Icy Snow asked curiously as she looked at the 2 crooked patterns on the table. "Just doing an experiment." Song Qingshu laughed at himself. This proved that he was still a smart person and wouldn't learn such a stupid method. However, his sword and fist interfighting seemed to have a lot in common with it. Of course, with Song Qingshu's current realm, he already felt that sword and fist interfighting was too complicated and not worth mentioning. There are so many experts in Mongolia. Little junior sister's situation is really dangerous, Icy Snow said worriedly. Suddenly, she changed the topic. "Which side are you going to help later?" Song Qingshu was stunned. "Is there any doubt? Xiao Long Nu is your little junior sister. It's reasonable for me to help her." "That's not necessarily true," Icy Snow snorted. "Previously in Kaifeng, didn't you flirt with that Mongolian princess?" Song Qingshu could only reply with a silly smile. Icy Snow suddenly laughed. "But I believe that uncle will help my junior sister. Although that Mongolian princess is incomparably beautiful, my little junior sister has skin of ice and bones of jade. Her appearance is even slightly better than hers. Uncle has always been a person who has tender and protective feelings for the fair sex. Of course, he won't let my little junior sister be bullied. What kind of messy reason is that?" Song Qingshu said gloomily. At this moment, there was already a change in the scene. Zhao Zhijing was hit by 2 swords. In his heart, he despised Kashi's mediocre martial arts and couldn't be relied on as a protective talisman. In the midst of the crisis, he rushed to Jinluan Fuwang's side. Unfortunately, The distance was too far. Just as he passed by Xiaoxiangzi, Xiaolong Nu acted as if she didn't see him. She turned around and attacked Kashi with her left hand, while the sword in her right hand stabbed towards Nimiqsing on the other side. Nimiqsing's legs were crippled, and it was difficult for him to move. His left hand supported his crutch, and his right hand used the iron snake to block. Zhao Zhijing shouted loudly, and his sword fell to the ground. It turned out that his wrist was stabbed. Good swordsmanship. This move was even more peculiar. It was obvious that Xiaolong Nu and Zhao Zhijing were far apart, but when she was attacking the two experts, she managed to find time to injure him. Even an expert like Ouyang Feng sighed in admiration. Chapter 368. Xiaoxiangzi snorted coldly and said, "Miss Long's swordplay is not bad. I'll have to experience it myself." His left hand pushed out to the side, and Zhao Zhijing felt a huge force hitting his shoulder. He lost his footing and fell a few feet away. Luckily, his internal energy has a good foundation, so even though he suffered a few injuries, he was still able to stand. Song Qingshu saw this and laughed coldly. Shameless, really shameless. 3 Wulin grandmasters ganging up on a little girl. Where's the propriety? Xiaoxiangzi and the rest heard this, and their faces turned slightly hot. All their lives, they had never cared about benevolence, righteousness, and morality, but all of them were arrogant and conceited, and they attached great importance to their status. Not to mention the 3 of them joining hands. Even if it was one-on-one, they would disdain to fight a young lady like this. But at this moment, if they were to rely on themselves, they would definitely not be able to withstand her unpredictable sword move. Xiaolong Nu looked at Song Qingshu in surprise. Her values are very simple. Whoever is good to her, she will be good to them. Hearing Song Qingshu speaking up for her, she had a good impression of this stranger. Being glanced at by her pure eyes, Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. He looked at her peerless beauty and sighed. No wonder Yin Jiping's 10 years of cultivation was destroyed that night in the original novel. Is there any man in the world who can resist such temptation? Xiaoxiangzi saw Xiaolong Nu turn her head and was delighted. He quietly waved his staff and pounced over. Song Qingshu saw his sneak attack and pressed his right hand on the table. A chopstick jumped out from the bamboo tube, and his left hand brushed past it. With a clang sound, the chopstick hit Xiaoxiangzi's staff. Xiaoxiangzi felt his thumb and forefinger go numb and looked over in shock. Song Qingshu leisurely picked up a cup of wine and took a sip. He had already shown mercy. Otherwise, with his current level of martial arts, a chopstick would be enough to take the life of an expert like Xiaoxiangzi. Xiaolong Nu finally regained her senses. Her sword flashed, and she has already made her move. Xiaoxiangzi and the others still could not see her sword clearly. They all leapt back more than 10 feet away and brandished their weapons to protect their vital parts. Xiaoxiangzi, Nimiqsing, and Kashi were all hoping that she would attack the others first. As long as they could see some clues from her moves, they would have a chance to win. The 3 of them had the same idea. Therefore, they each used their life's consummate skill, protecting their entire body, so that there was not the slightest gap. First, they hoped that they could not win. Then they hoped that the enemy could win. These 3 experts took a defensive stance as soon as they made their move, which was a rare occurrence in their lives. But seeing that the enemy was so strong, if they rushed forward to attack, they would most likely be humiliated. In the main hall, Xiaolong Nu stood in the middle with her 2 swords hanging on the ground. Xiaoxiangzi and the other 2 stood in 3 different directions. In front of each of them, a cold light flashed back and forth. Kashi's golden whip turned into a ball of yellow light. Nimiqsing's iron snake was a black shadow, advancing and retreating. Xiaoxiangzi's morning stick turned into a gray screen, covering the front of his body. Seeing that Zhao Zhijing was about to retreat behind Jinlu and Fuwang, Xiaolong Nu waved her sleeve and stepped forward. Nimiqsing and Xiaoxiangzi rushed forward from the left and right. The iron snake and morning stick were in front of her. Even if the 2 of them combined couldn't attack, they should be able to defend themselves. Xiao Long Nu saw that there was no gap to take advantage of and did not use her two swords. She saw that Zhao Zijing was running to the back of the hall and chased after him with her sword in hand. But Nimiqing and Xiao Xiangzi's weapons made whistling sounds, and she was unable to catch up. Xiao Long Nu said, "Are you going to let me or not?" Nimiqing's broken legs were caused by Yang Guo and Li Macho. He knew that Yang Guo was Xiao Long Nu's lover and wanted to vent his anger on her. He laughed coldly and said, "We won't let you, you little witch. What skills do you have that you can muddle through?" Xiao Xiangzi and Yin Kashi looked at each other. They understood that in front of Zhao Min and Hua Zheng, fighting 3 against 1 was already a great loss of face. It was difficult to get off the tiger now. If they won, it would be fine. But if they retreated because of Xiao Long Nu's words, they would not have the face to continue living in Mongolia. Xiao Long Nu was not angry. She only knew that if she wanted to kill Yin and Zhao, she had to get rid of these 3 skilled fighters. She coldly said, "Since you won't let me go, then I'll have to offend you." Just as she finished speaking, the sword flashed, and suddenly there was a sound. It was continuous. Before the sound subsided, Xiao Long Nu had already leaped back more than 10 feet and returned to the center of the hall. Good swordsmanship. Song Qing-shu was full of praise. Then he changed the topic. What a pity. What's wrong? With Icy Snow's martial arts, she could not completely see Xiao Long Nu's lightning-fast swordsmanship. Hearing Song Qing-shu praise her little apprentice sister, she did not have the time to be happy. Then she heard the next sentence and could not help but worry. In that instant, your junior sister's twin swords had already stabbed, sliced, pointed, and chopped. In total, she had made more than 40 moves. Unfortunately, the other 3's defense was watertight. Every move collided with the weapons. In the ears of an ordinary person, more than 40 extremely short continuous strikes were only the long sound of weapons clashing. Song Qing-shu explained in a low voice, "Although your apprentice sister's swordsmanship was exquisite and fast, her internal energy was insufficient. She could not use her sword to block their swordsmanship, and it would be difficult to break through their defense." Xiao Xiangzi and the others were even more alarmed. The reason why they were able to block her attack was because they were able to wield their weapons so tightly that not even a drop of water could get through. If they had waited for her to attack and then raised their weapons to block, they would have been hit by the sword. Xiao Longnu's rapid attacks were unable to break through, and she admired the opponent's tight defense. She paused for a moment and lightly retreated backwards. Her face was still facing Xiao Xiangzi. Her two swords suddenly turned around and stabbed backwards. Ding, 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 12 rapid clanging sounds could be heard. Even a master of the pipa would not be able to play with such urgency. Inkashi's golden whip was never idle and finally managed to block these 12 attacks. Xiao Long Nu thought, such rapid brandishing of the swordsmanship consumes a lot of internal energy. It will not last long. I just need to wait and see. After a long time, I'll find an opening. Even if Zhao Zijing and the others escape, I will slowly find them. Her two swords trembled slightly. It seemed like an attack, but not an attack. She was accumulating power and waiting to strike. But she did not attack. Her opponents did not dare to relax. But Xiao Xiangzi and the others had profound internal energy. Brandishing their swords like this, their strength did not diminish in a short period of time. Xiao Long Nu saw that there was no opening to exploit. She quietly stood there, her expression elegant and dignified. She was never impatient. She had been following Yin Jiping and Zhao Zijing for more than a month. She did not make a move. What harm was there in waiting for another day or half a day? 20 years of silent defense in Gunmu had trained her patience to the point that no one could match. Not to mention the 3 experts surrounding a young girl, they were all on the defensive. Even if their faces were as thick as the city walls, they would be too embarrassed to let Princess Zhao Min and Princess Huajing see their shameful state. Nimiqing saw Xiao Long Nu holding her sword and standing there as if there was no one else around. He was the first to lose his cool. He suddenly roared like a tiger and brandished his iron snake, rushing towards her. As soon as he attacked, there was an opening on his left. Xiao Long Nu's sword trembled. Nimic hurriedly used his crutch to jump back. He felt a slight pain in his shoulder. Looking down, he saw a small hole in his clothes. Blood was seeping out. If not for Xiao Long Nu guarding against his Iron Snake's attack, his left arm would not be attached to his body. Nimic attack was futile and he was injured. Although he was angry, he did not dare to rashly attack again. The three people stood in three different directions, each brandishing their weapons. Xiao Long Nu stood in the middle, completely ignoring them. Inkashi had used the yellow sand 10,000-li whip technique 4 times. Suddenly, he had an idea. He called out, "Brother Nimic, brother Xiaoxiang, let's take half a step forward." Nimic and Xiaoxiang Zi didn't understand his intention. But thinking that he was a great merchant of the western regions, knowledgeable and intelligent, they obeyed and took half a step forward. Inkashi took half a step forward at the same time. He called out, "Our defense must be strict. Our steps must be slow. Let's take half a step forward." Nimic and Xiaoxiang Zi followed. The three people did not relax. After a while, they took half a step forward. At this time, everyone could see that the circle surrounding Xiao Long Nu was gradually shrinking. In the end, she would be squeezed in the center. Although the three people did not dare to attack, they each brandished their weapons. They formed 3 impenetrable walls, gradually squeezing towards the center. The 3 defensive forces combined into a powerful attack. It was really fierce and unstoppable. When the crowd saw this scene, other than Zhao Zhijing and a few others, they were secretly delighted. Even Zhao Min and the others were worried for Xiao Long Nu. Xiao Long Nu saw the 3 people getting closer and closer. Their weapons and moves were still unable to find an opening. She knew that before long, she would be squeezed to death by them. She thrusted her 2 swords repeatedly. Clanking sounds were heard, sometimes fast and sometimes slow. Every move collided with the opponent's weapon. She consecutively attacked more than 10 times, but all were blocked. The 3 people each took half a step forward. Xiao Long Nu gradually panicked. When she retreated to the left, her foot tripped and she staggered. Her swordplay revealed a big flaw. If it wasn't for Xiaoxiang Zi and the others defending and not attacking, not daring to take advantage of the opportunity to attack, she would have been in great danger. "Uncle, I'm afraid little Marshall's sister won't be able to hold on much longer." Icy Snow was restless. She wanted to rescue her several times, but because of the Mongolian people's numbers, she was worried that more experts from the opponent would join the battle and harm Xiao Long Nu. Song Qingshu suddenly said, "Miss Long, although the left and right mutual sword combination is exquisite, have you forgotten that most of the swordplay in this world only needs 1 sword? The opponent wants to take your sword. Why are you so stubborn?" Xiao Long Nu was originally an exceptionally intelligent person. After listening to Inkashi's pointers, she suddenly realized that when Inkashi used the 10,000 miles yellow sand whip, there was a natural suction force. Xiao Long Nu was worried that the sword force in her hand would be drawn, so she deliberately avoided that direction. Xiao Long Nu's thoughts were simple. Just now, when Song Qingshu helped her, she felt that he wouldn't harm her. Without the slightest hesitation, her left sword stabbed towards the center of Inkashi's whip. As soon as the 2 weapons came into contact, Xiao Long Nu felt a strong force coming from her sword, almost causing her to lose her grip. Her face was calm. Not only did she not pull her sword back, but she borrowed the force to send her sword forward, allowing Inkashi to snatch her sword away. Inkashi's long whip entangled her sword. He could no longer move freely. At that moment, there was finally a gap in his defense. Inkashi hurriedly wanted to shake off the sword, but just as he was about to raise his whip, Xiao Long Nu's long sword stabbed out. Inkashi's wrist was in severe pain, and he could no longer hold the whip. Inkashi's wrist was injured, and his weapon fell to the ground. This encirclement was immediately broken. Xiao Long Nu took the opportunity to pick up the sword from the ground. The 2 swords flashed like 2 rays of lightning. The 3 people surrounding her hastily retreated. Xiao Long Nu did not pursue an attack. Instead, She raised her chi and nimbly raised her sword to stab Zhao Zijing's body. Jinlu and Fuang had suffered under the pure heart of the Jade maiden swordplay. His complexion couldn't help but change. On the contrary, the master of the Jin gang had already noticed that although Xiao Longnu's swordplay was high, her internal energy was insufficient. He extended 2 fingers and clamped onto Xiao Longnu's sword. With a jolt of internal energy, the long sword was snapped in half. Taking advantage of the moment when Xiao Longnu was stunned and absent-minded, his other finger silently stabbed towards her slender waist. Chapter 369. Xiao Longnu did not expect his seemingly fragile fingers to be harder than a sharp sword. When she saw the Guardian Metal Sect master clamp her sword with his fingers, she thought that she could cut off his fingertips with her sword. Xiao Longnu was kind-hearted. She thought that she had no enmity with him and was hesitating whether she should be merciful. She did not expect her sword to be snapped in half in the blink of an eye, and the Guardian Metal Sect master's other hand was already stabbing toward her waist. The entire room was filled with gasps. Most of the men could not bear to see this fairy-like lady perish just like that. Although Xiao Longnu was shocked, she still maintained a frosty expression. Her entire upper body suddenly fell backward. Her sword had been very fast just now, but in the blink of an eye, she seemed to have forgotten about inertia and turned in the opposite direction. Everyone in the room broke into a cold sweat for her, fearing that her slender waist would be snapped. However, Xiao Longnu's entire body displayed exaggerated flexibility. She was like a willow branch as she completed this difficult maneuver very gently. She kicked the Guardian Metal Sect master's wrist with the tip of her foot and took the opportunity to flip backward 10 feet. She glanced at the broken sword in her hand and stared at the other party vigilantly. The Guardian Metal Sect master respected his status and did not pursue a young lady after failing to land a blow. However, he admired Xiao Longnu's martial arts very much. This soft waist, tsk tisk. Song Qingshu secretly lowered his hands that were about to execute the dragon-capturing technique and sighed with emotion. "Uncle, are you up to no good again?" Icy snow covered her mouth and giggled. "No way." Song Qingshu blushed and smiled embarrassedly. "Miss, your sword is broken. If you don't mind, you can use my sword." Suddenly, a clear male voice was heard. Everyone turned to look and saw that it was the young man in luxurious clothes who was sitting next to Ouyang Feng. Xiao Longnu raised her hand and caught the sword that the other party had tossed over. She examined it for a moment, and her expression was rather satisfied. "Although my Mount Wu sword cannot compare to the famous heavenly sword and dragon saber of Jianghu, it is more than enough to split metal and break rocks." The embroidered, clothed young master wanted to brag without restraint, but Xiao Longnu nodded her head and turned around to look at Zhao Zijing, who was behind Jinlu and Fuang, leaving him with only the image of her delicate back. The young master in luxurious clothes felt suffocated. He had no choice but to sit back down with a gloomy expression on his face. Song Qingshu smiled knowingly. This young master was handsome and generous, so it was easy for him to have a good impression of an ordinary girl. Who would have thought that he would meet Xiao Longnu, who was ignorant of worldly affairs? She was a silent, heartless, and expressionless girl. Uncle seems to be very happy to see that young man suffer a setback. After being intimate with Song Qingshu, Icy Snow's thoughts were unknowingly tied to him. The smile that appeared on Song Qingshu's lips couldn't escape her attention. "If I'm not wrong, this young man should be a noble of the Jin Kingdom. He is destined to be our enemy. It's natural for me to be happy to see him suffer a setback." Song Qingshu suddenly laughed and reached out to hold Icy Snow's soft hand. "Sister-in-law, are you jealous?" Icy Snow's heart skipped a beat. She looked up and saw that no one noticed their little movements under the table. She quickly and quietly broke free. Her pretty face under the mask was already flushed. She pouted coquettishly. "No way. Why is your finger strength so powerful?" Although Xiao Longnu could not wait to rush over and kill Zhao Zijing, she was not a reckless person. Jinlu and Fuang was already very powerful, and the dude's martial arts were not inferior to his. Moreover, there was a large group of unknown experts over there. Young lady, it's not surprising that you don't know about the power of King Kong Finger. The Vajra faction master looked proud. The Shaolin Temple's King Kong Finger? Xiao Long Nu was ignorant of worldly affairs. She had some understanding of the martial arts in Jianghu, but she was not sure. The Vajra faction master's expression changed. Bullshit. The fake King Kong Finger of those bald donkeys from Shaolin Temple is nothing compared to the authentic one from our Vajra faction. The so-called knowledge and wisdom for divine monks of Shaolin Temple had the highest attainments in King Kong Finger. One died under Xie Sun's chaotic fists, another was easily captured by Chang Kuan, and the last one couldn't even defeat my disciple. What a joke. So King Kong Finger is a martial art from the Vajra faction. Did the Shaolin Temple steal it? Xiao Long Nu did not take offense. She had an expression of sudden realization, but a trace of doubt still flashed across her face. Seeing that Xiao Long Nu did not seem to have any ulterior motives, the Vajra faction master could not lose his temper. His face flushed red, while Jinluan Fuang and Taoist priest Baishang snickered on the side. I'm going to cause trouble for this Taoist. Are you really going to protect him? Xiao Long Nu was not interested in the origins of the sect and quickly put aside the King Kong Finger. Young lady, it's best if you leave as soon as possible. There are so many of them here, and any one of them is a martial arts senior whose name shakes Jianghu. You won't be able to defeat any one of them. It'll be bad if you get yourself into trouble. On the other side, Ouyang Feng laughed coldly. It seemed like a compliment, but in reality, it was full of sarcasm. Although Ouyang Feng had never seen this daughter-in-law of his before due to the change in the plot, he could tell that Zhao Min and her party were Mongolians. Naturally, he did not have a good impression of them. Ouyang Feng's words caused Taoist priest Baishang, the Vajra faction master, Jinlun Fuang, and the others to lose face. They were all martial arts masters, especially Taoist priest Baishang, who was a self-proclaimed elder of the martial arts world who could compete with Zhang Sanfeng. How could they be willing to make a move against a delicate young girl? What is the meaning of this? Seeing that the others were not answering and were standing in front of Zhao Zhijing, Xiao Long Nu said angrily. Zhao Min smiled. This sister's martial arts are so high. Can you tell me your name? Xiao Long Nu frowned slightly and replied indifferently. My surname is Long. She then closed her mouth tightly and did not say another word. Zhao Min was startled. After thinking for a while, she more or less understood Xiao Long Nu's personality. I've always liked martial arts. I wonder if Miss Long Nu would be willing to teach me that amazing swordplay just now? Xiao Long Nu shook her head. You can't learn my martial arts. Zhao Min smiled sweetly. Although I don't dare to call myself a genius in martial arts. Up until now, there is no martial arts that I can't learn. Zhao Min thought that Xiao Long Nu was not willing to easily teach martial arts to others. She did not know that what Xiao Long Nu said was actually the truth. The pure heart of jade, made in swordplay, required two people to work together. One person would use the pure heart of jade made in swordplay, while the other would use the Chuanjin swordplay. If one person wanted to use it, they would have to learn Zhou Buodong's left and right mutual combat technique. But the left and right mutual combat technique could not be learned by those who were not simple-minded. This was especially true for people like Zhao Min and Huang Rong, who had the 7 exquisite hearts. They could not even learn it. Xiao Long Nu did not think too much and said whatever came to her mind. Seeing Zhao Min's confident expression, she pointed her sword at Zhao Zhijing and Yin Jiping. Fine, kill these two Taoists and I will teach you. Zhao Min had an as-expected expression on her face. Compared to martial arts, she was more interested in the Chuanjin sect behind Zhao Zhijing and Yin Jiping. Naturally, she would not abandon them. She smiled. Miss Long Nu, just now you have seen the martial arts of my subordinates. Do you think you can kill these two Taoists under their eyes? Xiao Long Nu was speechless. After a moment of hesitation, she said, I can't, but you can protect them for a while, but not forever. Zhao Min saw that she had the intention to leave. She thought that having such a skilled martial artist lurking around day and night would be a great danger. She rolled her eyes and came up with a plan. Since Miss Long Nu thinks you can't, then I can give you another chance. If you can defeat any one of these three, you can do whatever you want with these two Taoists. If you can't, then please stay behind and teach me that swordplay. What do you think? Xiaomin did not really care about the swordplay. She only wanted to take this opportunity to settle the scores between the two sides. Now that the situation was like this, Taoist Bai Shun and the others respected their status and refused to make a move. With the swordplay and lightness kung fu that Xiao Long Nu had just displayed, the others would not be able to stop her. Once Xiao Long Nu left, Zhao Zijing and Yin Jiping's lives would be in constant danger. This was something that Zhao Min, who was prepared to invest heavily in the two, could not accept. Although Taoist Bai Shun and the other two respected their status and were unwilling to make a move on Xiao Long Nu, Zhao Min believed that they would not mind showing off their skills in front of her and Hua Zheng in the name of the bet. Based on the martial arts that Xiao Long Nu had just displayed, although her swordplay was exquisite, her internal energy was too weak. She was definitely not a match for the three of them. As long as she kept Xiao Long Nu by her side, Zhao Min could pretend that she did not know the swordplay and keep her there. She was confident that with her intelligence, it would not be difficult for her to slowly dissolve the hatred between Xiao Long Nu and Zhao Zijing over time. Are you serious? Xiao Long Nu's eyes brightened. Zhao Min was stunned. She could not understand why she was so excited. She only thought that she was eager for revenge and was ready to go all out. She smiled and nodded, "Of course." She then turned to look at Taoist Bai Shun and the others and said respectfully, "I really like this sister's swordplay. Can the three of you help me give Miss Long some pointers and help me win this bet?" Taoist Bai Shun and the other two looked at each other. Although they did not want to bully the weak, they had to give face to Zhao Min. She spoke politely in front of outsiders, but the three of them knew how powerful she was in Mongolia. Since they had pledged their allegiance to Mongolia, they could not afford to offend her. Moreover, Zhao Min had given them a way out of this embarrassing situation. In the name of giving pointers, they could reluctantly accept it. So they all nodded in agreement. Jinluan Fuang had suffered under the swordplay of pure heart of Jade Maiden, and couldn't help but secretly complain. However, the arrow on the bowstring had to be released. The other two had already agreed. He did not dare to lose face in front of everyone. Miss Long Nu, you can choose any opponent. As long as you can withstand 100 moves from them, you win. Zhao Min felt that if she said that Xiao Long Nu would win, it would damage the dignity of the Grandmasters. So she changed her words at the last minute. For what she could see, these three's martial arts were far higher than Xiao Long Nu's. It would not be difficult for them to defeat her within 100 moves. Okay, Xiao Long Nu was also very straightforward. She raised her sword and pointed at Jinluan Fuang, "Then I choose him." Chapter 370. Jinluan Fuang's face turned green when he heard this, but he couldn't back down now. He had to get up and fight. As if to encourage himself, he said angrily, "This time Yanghua isn't here. I don't believe that you can use the full power of your swordplay." Ouyang Feng's expression changed when he heard the name Yanghua, but he didn't say anything and continued to watch the fight. Gwr! When she thought of Yanghua, Xiao Long Nu felt a tinge of sweetness in her heart. She hated Zhao Zijing's shamelessness even more. Plus, she wasn't good with words to begin with, so she ignored Jinluan Fuang's words and raised her sword to attack. Jinluan Fuang roared angrily. The gold, silver, copper, iron, and lead wheels danced in the air, forcing Xiao Long Nu to be unable to get close to him. The sound of the 5 wheels made everyone's ears ring. This monk's internal energy is very deep. Icy Snow said worriedly. His internal energy is indeed enough to be ranked among the top fighters in the world. Song Qingshu nodded his head in agreement. He thought that Jinluan Fuang's dragon elephant prajna hasn't reached a high level yet. Otherwise, he wouldn't be relying on these pieces of scrap metal. In the end, the wheels danced, the swordplay crisscrossed, Jinlu and Fuwang's roar was like thunder. Xiao Longnu's clothes were whiter than snow. The two of them were fighting from a distance. Xiao Xiangzi and the others watched the fight between Fuwang and Xiao Longnu. They saw that though Fuwang defended more than he attacked, every 2 or 3 moves he would return another. The power of the 5 wheels was extremely fierce, forcing Xiao Longnu to be unable to get close to him. Compared to the 3 of them who only defended and didn't attack, he was indeed much stronger. The 3 of them were filled with admiration and jealousy. They all thought, this monk has been conferred the title of Mongolia's first imperial preceptor. It's not in vain. What they didn't know was that though Jinlu and Fuwang's attacks were fierce, he was complaining incessantly in his heart. Xiao Longnu's sword stances were different, but their coordination was exquisite. The sword in her left hand attacked in front, while the sword in her right hand attacked behind at the same time, forcing him to retreat but also unable to advance. Every sword stance of her 2 swords attacked several places, causing him to be unable to attend to one and lose sight of the other, making it difficult for him to save himself. If not for the fact that his internal and external energy cultivation had reached the pinnacle of perfection, his eyes were sharp, his hands were fast, and his martial arts skill was just a little bit inferior, his body would have been hit 17, 18 times in an instant. Although Zhao Min's martial arts could not be considered a master, her eyesight was very good. The scene of the 2 fighting was far from the guidance she had imagined. She had always admired Jinlu and Fuwang's kung fu, but now that he was gradually falling into a disadvantageous position, Zhao Min couldn't help but be shocked. This girl's kung fu has reached such a high level. Song Qingshu smiled and whispered to Icy Snow, "Your junior sister will definitely win this round." Icy Snow asked in astonishment, "How is that possible? That monk's kung fu is clearly much higher than little junior sister's. She only relied on her exquisite swordplay to catch him off guard. When he recovers, it shouldn't be difficult for her to win. I just hope that little junior sister can last more than 100 moves, and thank the heavens." Song Qingshu's eyesight was now very sharp. He could see that Jinlu and Fuwang's defeat was already set in stone, so naturally he wasn't lying. Seeing that Jinlu and Fuwang's actual combat ability was indeed worrisome, Song Qingshu laughed. "Your junior sister is using 2 sword plays by herself. Although her moves are fast, the power is still not as good as the 2 of them working together. Her actual kung fu is indeed far from Jinlu and Fuwang's, but it's a pity that Jinlu and Fuwang has suffered under this pure heart of jade maiden swordplay before, so when he saw the swordplay he was afraid. In addition, Xiao Longnu's moves are as fast as lightning, giving rise to the effect of gaining the upper hand by a show of strength. If Jinlu and Fuwang had used the ferocious power of his wheel to attack Xiao Longnu, she wouldn't have been able to withstand it. But Jinlu and Fuwang was afraid. He actually gave up his strong points and competed with Xiao Longnu in terms of speed. There was no way he could win. As if to confirm Song Qingshu's judgment, after 50 or 60 moves, Fuwang was already in a perilous situation. He called back his golden wheel to protect himself, not daring to throw it out to attack. After a few more moves, he also called back his silver wheel, and then all 5 wheels came back together, turning into a state of only defending and not attacking, just like Xiao Xiangzi and the others. The 5 wheels were all different in weight, size, color, and shape. Some had sharp spikes, some had sharp corners. They formed 5 rings of light, rolling around his body. Suddenly, they heard Xiao Longnu's delicate shout, "Get him!" followed by Fuwang's low roar. Ding-ding sound were heard. The 2 leapt around, their attacks getting faster and faster. Even a skilled fighter like Xiao Xiangzi couldn't see clearly what had happened with their shouts and shouts. What happened just now? Icy Snow also didn't see clearly. She asked in surprise. Song Qingshu smiled faintly. Jinlu and Fuwang is injured. Not long after, Xiao Longnu's white gown was splattered with more than 10 spots of blood. It was as if a few peach blossoms were drawn on a white silk cloth, bright and eye-catching. Nimixing happily said, "The little witch is injured." Then the sword flashed twice. Fuwang let out a low roar. Xiao Xiangzi coldly said, "No, It's the big monk who's injured. Zhao Min's face was gloomy. She didn't expect this kind of result. She saw Taoist Baisheng and the master of Jin Kong's gloating expressions. She thought for a moment and understood what they were thinking. This group of highly skilled fighters all had their own unique skills. They had always been arrogant and unruly after they joined the Mongolians. None of them were willing to submit to anyone else. They all wanted to be the person that the leader admired the most. The title of the #1 fighter in Mongolia was quite attractive. Jinlun Fuwang was previously given the title of the Mongolian imperial tutor. He had the air of being the #1 fighter in Mongolia. Taoist Baisheng, the master of Jin Kong, and the other highly skilled fighters who joined the Mongolians later on were naturally unhappy. But they were all officials of the same court. It wasn't good for them to have a life and death battle. Now that an outsider was going to step in and take down Jinlun Fuwang's prestige, they were more than happy to do so. Zhao Min knew that in this situation, it was impossible to ask the two to help. Even if they agreed, Jinlun Fuwang probably couldn't afford to lose face like this. Suddenly, she had an idea. She casually chatted with Princess Huazheng. "Gu, if I had an embroidery needle in my hand and you had a heavy hammer in your hand, if we hit each other at the same time, who would be injured more?" Princess Huazheng was confused. She instinctively replied, "Of course you would be injured more." Zhao Min smiled. "Yes, even if Gugu was pricked by the embroidery needle a few times, it wouldn't be a big deal, but if I was hit by a heavy hammer, even if I didn't die, I would be seriously injured." Jinlun Fuwang knew that it wouldn't be long before he was defeated by Xiao Longnu, not to mention the empty title of the #1 fighter in Mongolia. Even in the Mongolian camp, he would no longer have a place to stand. His heart was like dead ashes. Suddenly hearing Zhao Min's clear voice, his heart skipped a beat. He realized that the princess was reminding him. After thinking about it for a while, Jinlun Fuwang's eyes lit up. He suddenly understood. "Yes, I've always been cautious, afraid of being stabbed to death by Xiao Longnu. But how could I not know her level of internal energy? Even if I was stabbed once or twice, it would at most be a light injury. But the wheels that contain internal energy, Xiao Longnu's delicate body, wouldn't be able to withstand it. So why should I blindly defend?" Making up his mind, Jinlun Fuwang changed his attitude. He no longer fought with speed. Other than protecting his own vital points, he no longer defended most of Xiao Longnu's sword stances. He waved the 5 wheels to attack, seeking to exchange injury for injury. As a result, it was Xiao Longnu's turn to be restrained. In order to avoid Jinlun Fuwang's attacks, she had to retract her sword at the last moment. Song Qingshu let out a small sigh. Zhao Min was indeed smart. Her kung fu was obviously not that good, but she was able to see the problem with one glance. She even used the opportunity of the conversation to indirectly remind Jinlun Fuwang, giving him some face. Other than the real experts, most of the people present thought the same as icy snow. They thought that Jinlun Fuwang was caught off guard at the beginning, and now that he had regained his footing, he started a counterattack. Who would have known that if it wasn't for Zhao Min's reminder, Jinlun Fuwang might have died under Xiao Longnu's sword? After dodging many times, Xiao Longnu still couldn't avoid the collision between her sword and the 5 wheels. After a crisp sound, the sword in her left hand broke into pieces. Her delicate body felt as if it was struck by lightning. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. She quickly retreated. After suffering under the pure heart of jade made in swordplay several times, Jinlun Fuwang's murderous intent rose. He gathered his chi to attack. He wanted to take the opportunity to kill Xiao Longnu with his palms. Who knew that a loud croak of a frog would suddenly resound in the hall? A gray shadow would fly over like a cannonball. One could feel the destructive force from far away. Jinlun Fuwang was shocked. He knew that if he didn't stop his attack, even if he could take Xiao Longnu's life, she would definitely die under the hands of the person who came. Jinlun Fuwang's chi sank to his dantian. He quickly activated the Dragon Elephant Prajna technique. In the blink of an eye, he exchanged more than 10 palms with the person. A violent wind spread out with the 2 of them as the center. Not to mention most of the ordinary Wulin people in the inn, even experts like Xiao Xiangzi were blown around by the wind. Nimic Singh was in the worst condition. Both his legs were broken, his lower body was unstable, he directly sat on the floor. There were only a few people in the hall who were able to sit steadily. Jinluan Fuang retreated a few steps. He felt his qi and blood churning. His face was so red that it looked like it was about to burst into blood. He was at a disadvantage because he had just exchanged tens of moves with Xiao Long Nu. He had already used up a lot of internal energy, in addition to the fact that he had to deal with the enemy in a hurry. He had just exchanged blows with the enemy, so he had already suffered serious internal injuries. Ouyang Feng laughed loudly. You are a dignified grandmaster. You still need to rely on other people to help you deal with a young girl. It's really laughable. When Ouyang Feng heard Jinluan Fuang's words, he knew that Xiao Long Nu and Yang Guo were lovers. He naturally wouldn't let his future daughter-in-law suffer. He saw that Jinluan Fuang wanted to secretly kill her. He immediately went to help. Jinluan Fuang's face twitched. It's a pity that his qi was congested. He couldn't say anything for a while. Ouyang Feng didn't pay attention to him. Instead, he turned his head around and thought with interest. Could it be North Xiao Feng? His dragon catcher hand is very good. Just now, when Xiao Long Nu's life was hanging by a thread, Song Qingshu also made his move. His palms grabbed at Xiao Long Nu's body through the air and pulled her over. Xiao Long Nu was just preparing to deal with Jinluan Fuang when she suddenly felt a huge force coming from beside her. Her body was involuntarily pulled over. When she came to her senses, she found herself sitting in the arms of the man who had just spoken up to help her. Xiao Long Nu was furious, but when she thought about how he was trying to save her, she didn't know how to react. Chapter 371. Seeing that Xiao Long Nu was sitting motionlessly in his arms like a fool, Song Qingshu felt uncomfortable. Even though he enjoyed the feeling of hugging Xiao Long Nu, he wasn't that thick-skinned when everyone was watching in the hall. Not to mention that Icy Snow was sitting next to him, feeling Song Qingshu's hand on her slender waist. Xiao Long Nu seemed to have woken up from a dream. She hurriedly stood up, and a faint blush blossomed on her frosty face for the first time. Under Icy Snow's strange gaze, Song Qingshu smiled awkwardly and quickly answered Ouyang Feng's question to divert everyone's attention. I've always admired Northern Xiao Feng's heroic spirit. I think a peerless hero like him wouldn't bother to hide like me. Looking at the mask on his face, everyone in the hall let out a burst of good-natured laughter, having a good impression of his self-deprecating temperament. Of course, that was except for the Mongolians. With your martial arts skills, I'm sure you must have a great background in the pugilistic world. Why don't you dare to show your true face? Zhao Min had always liked to be in control of the overall situation. She was naturally wary of such an expert with an unknown background. Because I'm too handsome. To prevent young girls like you from falling in love with me the moment you see my face, I have no choice but to wear a mask. With the mask, Song Qingshu was like a child who didn't fear punishment for doing something wrong, resuming his unbridled Wuji style. Icy Snow didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Of course, she was wearing a mask, so others couldn't see her expression. Xiao Long Nu, who was next to her, also looked at him in surprise, as though she had never seen such a shameless person. Everyone in the hall could tell that he was teasing Zhao Min. Since they were just watching a show, they burst into laughter and whistled. Zhao Min's face darkened. Mr. Liu, Mr. Crane, slap him for me. Liu Zhanke and He Biweng had been serving by Zhao Min's side for a long time. They knew her temperament very well. They were ready to make their move a long time ago. Hearing her order, the two of them attacked Song Qingshu from left and right without the slightest hesitation. The Xianming elders each stretched out a palm. One aimed at the major acupoint on Song Qingshu's chest, the other aimed at his lower abdomen's dantian, and the other slapped his face. The two of them cooperated closely. If the enemy wanted to parry the two palms attacking their body, they would inevitably suffer two slaps. If they used their hands to block the two palms attacking their face, their dantian would be crippled, and they would die on the spot. Not to mention ordinary experts. Even peerless experts would be caught off guard by this move of theirs. Miss Long, let me borrow your sword. As soon as Xiao Long Nu heard the voice by her ear, she felt that her hand was empty. She could not help but be shocked. An expert swordsman did not even know how his sword was snatched away. It was really too inconceivable. The Xianming elders suddenly saw a dazzling sword light appear in front of them. In their great shock, they quickly changed their moves and took out their respective weapons from their bosoms. After a dragon's roar, the two elders retreated several feet in a sorry state. They looked at the remaining half of the crane beak brush and the deer head staff in their hands with a lingering fear in their hearts. "Miss Long, do you want to kill Zhao Zijing?" After forcing the Xianming elders to retreat, Song Qingshu turned his head to look at Xiao Long Nu and asked. Xiao Long Nu did not turn her head and subconsciously nodded. "If I want to kill Zhao Zijing, I don't have to make a bet with that princess." Song Qingshu smiled slightly, and his figure suddenly disappeared. The crowd blinked their eyes, and he stood there again as if he had not moved from the beginning to the end. The only difference was that there was a dark red bead of blood on the tip of the sword in his hand. Kiki, a strange sound rang out in the hall. The crowd turned their heads and saw Zhao Zijing, who was hiding behind the Mongolian warriors, holding his throat. He had a look of disbelief on his face as he slowly fell to the ground. The hall was in an uproar, especially the Mongolian group. They all stood up. Even the Vajra Gate master and priest Baisheng, who had been quiet all this time, were shocked. Song Qingshu's sword was so fast that if they were not prepared, they would have been killed on the spot. Ever since she saw Zhao Zijing, Zhao Min quickly came up with a plan to control the Chuanjin sect. But all of this disappeared with Zhao Zijing's death. She could not help but look at Song Qingshu in shock and anger. "Who are you?" Song Qingshu put the tip of the sword in front of him and lightly exhaled. The bead of blood immediately scattered. He said in a strange and sad tone, "You can call me Shimin Chueshue." In his previous life, every boy dreamed of one day being like Shimin Chueshue, wearing white clothes and wielding a sword, invincible in the world. When Song Qingshu discovered that he could vaguely reach this realm, he sadly realized that he could no longer return to that wonderful world of the past. Shimin Chueshue? Zhao Min was stunned. Even with Ryong Mansion's powerful information network, they had never heard of this person. She was even worried that he was some old martial artist. She turned her head around to look at Priest Baisheng, and when she saw that he was also shaking his head, she became even more puzzled. Song Qingshu chose to kill Zhao Zijing and let Yin Jiping go because he believed that Yin Jiping was a dragon knight in the Western world of magic, and in the world of the three-body problem, he could also be known as Xiao Long Nu's Wallbreaker. No matter which it was, his life and death should be decided by Xiao Long Nu herself. Of course, Song Qingshu did not know that this peerless tragedy had never happened in this world. As for scum like Zhao Zijing, Song Qingshu had always looked down on him, so he helped Xiao Long Nu take care of him while he was at it. "Miss Long Nu, your sword." Song Qingshu held the sword and carefully handed it to Xiao Long Nu, looking at her peerless face. His heart was filled with pity. God is so stingy. Why can't they tolerate things that are too perfect in this world? Stunned by the magnificence of his sword just now, Xiao Long Nu was a little bewildered as she received the sword. "Thank you. We're all family. It's what I should do." Song Qingshu smiled faintly. "Family?" Xiao Long Nu was a little angry. Although this person's martial arts is high, why does he speak so incoherently? "Let me introduce to you." Song Qingshu pulled Icy Snow over. "My wife is also the successor of the ancient tomb sect. Based on her age of joining the sect, you and Li Macho should call her eldest senior sister. As for me, you can call me brother-in-law." Ouch! Seeing that Song Qingshu said that she was his wife in front of everyone, Icy Snow wished that she could dig a hole and hide in it. Fortunately, she had a mask to block it, so she could only console herself that no one would recognize her. Hearing him continue to spout nonsense, she pinched his waist fiercely in annoyance. Eldest senior sister? Xiao Long Nu was puzzled. She had never heard that her master had another successor. Icy Snow smiled and gently flicked her sleeves on the table. All the chopsticks in the bamboo tube jumped out. Icy Snow stretched out her snow-white hands and clapped them up and down. Dozens of chopsticks seemed to be fixed in the air by an invisible hand, and none of them fell to the ground. Inescapable net force. Xiaolong Nu was pleasantly surprised. Without the slightest doubt in her heart, she shouted, "Eldest senior sister." Chapter 372. Icy Snow responded sweetly. She held Xiaolong Nu's hand and sat down at the side. Then they started chatting happily. "There are too many people here. Let's go somewhere else." Song Qingshu put his hand under Icy Snow's armpit and held her in his arms. Although Icy Snow was not used to being so intimate with him in public, she could only blush and let him be when she thought of the mask. When she saw Xiaolong Nu's startled expression, she quickly said, "Little junior sister, there are too many bad people here. Come with us." Xiaolong Nu might be naive, but she was not stupid. She understood that many of the Mongolians were better than her in martial arts. It was not a wise move to go alone. Although Yin Jiping was not killed, the mastermind, Zhao Zijing, was already executed. Her anger had mostly dissipated. She grew up in the ancient tomb. When she was very young, her master died. She only had Grandma's son with her. Her only senior sister, Li Macho, was her enemy instead of a friend because she was after the Jade Maiden Heart Sutra. Now that she suddenly realized that she had a gentle senior sister, Xiaolong Nu subconsciously treated her as a family member. "You want to leave after killing someone? Aren't you too arrogant?" Zhao Min sneered. "Moreover, Miss Long Nu lost. According to the bet, she should stay by my side and teach me swordsmanship." As if they got a hint, Xiao Xiangzi and the other two who were closest to them blocked in front of them. The three of them were terrified by Xiaolong Nu's swordsmanship. However, after seeing Jinluan Fuwang turn the tables, they calmed down. They understood that they were just frightened by her amazing swordsmanship. As long as they focused on defense, it would be difficult for her sword to cause any substantial damage to the three of them. They had embarrassed themselves in front of Zhao Min and Huazhong, so they needed to prove their worth again. Otherwise, they might not have a good time in the Mongolian camp in the future. Although Song Qingshu's sword strike had shocked everyone, the three of them had heard that he was related to Xiaolong Nu and that they were from the same sect. They had subconsciously thought that Song Qingshu's sword art was the same as Xiaolong Nu's, only faster. Just now, he had succeeded in one strike because he had been caught off guard. The three of them had the experience of fighting with Xiaolong Nu, so if they worked together, they should have no problem dealing with Song Qingshu. Nimiqsing's temperament was the most irascible. After his legs were broken, he became even more irascible. Because it was difficult for him to move, he had been knocked to the ground by Jinluan Fuwang and Ouyang Feng's palms. He felt extremely awkward. Out of the three of them, he was the one who needed to redeem his image the most. So, with a loud roar, he swung his iron crutch towards Song Qingshu. He had learned from his previous experience of not being able to keep his footing, so he used the 1,000 Catty Fall Kung Fu. He didn't look for any fancy moves, only strength, and tried to force Song Qingshu to meet force with force. From what he saw, although Song Qingshu was wearing a mask, he shouldn't be over 30 years old. How much power could he have? Song Qingshu couldn't help but laugh when he saw that Nimiqsing was the first to charge at him, even though his legs were broken. In the original novel, the three of them were sometimes strong and sometimes weak. At their peak, they were able to challenge Jinluan Fuwang in the Mongolian tent. When they worked together, they were able to suppress Guijing. According to the narration, at that time, other than the five masters, Guijing, and a few others, they were strong enough to dominate the world. Who would have thought that they would be easily pushed around by Yanghua and Huang Yaoshi? Nimiqsing was also killed by Yanghua with a jade hairpin. At the end of the novel, the other two were also sent flying by Jing, who only had internal energy but no martial arts. Although they were called the three Mongolian heroes, they were ridiculed by the readers as the three Mongolian balls. Nimiqsing saw that Song Qingshu's mind was wandering and couldn't help but be overjoyed. He lowered his iron crutch and swept it towards Song Qingshu's legs. He couldn't move freely right now, and Song Qingshu's lightness kung fu was too high. He had to destroy his opponent's greatest advantage right from the start. Nimiqing saw that his crutch was about to hit Song Qingshu's legs. He didn't have time to be happy when he felt the crutch in his hand sink. The crutch in his right hand had been stepped on by Song Qingshu's foot. Nimiqing quickly used all his strength to pull back. He didn't know that when his opponent stepped on it, it was like a mountain pressing down on him. Nimiqing saw that Nimiqing's face was red. Song Qingshu sighed and said, "It's better to be the head of a chicken than the tail of a phoenix. You're so free and unfettered in India. Why did you come to the Central Plains and get involved in this mess?" After saying this, the strength in the soles of his feet suddenly disappeared without a trace. Nimiqing used all his strength to pull back. His hand suddenly became empty. He quickly pulled back his crutch, and with a pung sound, it hit his chest. If this blow was from an enemy, based on Nimiqing's martial arts, even if he couldn't block it, he would still use his internal energy to resist. Now that he hit himself, he didn't have the slightest bit of strength to resist. He felt a sharp pain in his chest and spat out a mouthful of blood. His vision went black, and he fell on his back to the ground. Not far away, Zhao Min frowned. She couldn't help but curl her lips and secretly scold him for being a piece of trash. Although Xiao Xiangzi and Yin Kashi were somewhat afraid of Song Qingshu's martial arts, they didn't think that his real martial arts could be much higher than theirs. Seeing Nimiqing in such a sorry state, they thought that after his legs were broken, he became extremely useless. Yin Kashi rushed forward a few steps and picked up the crutch from the ground. He handed it to Nimiqing. Nimiqing took it. He supported himself on the ground and wanted to jump far away. Who would have thought that his arm was still numb? As soon as he tried to support himself, he unexpectedly fell down. Xiao Xiangzi always rejoiced in other people's misfortune. As long as other people were unlucky, regardless of friend or foe, he would always be happy. He thought, "This Indian shorty has always been conceited and doesn't accept me. This is the end of him. Now that the martial arts experts have gathered, I must quickly capture this Shimin Chue Shui first. This is a good opportunity to make a name for myself in front of the princess and princess." He leapt forward and shouted, "Xiao Xiangzi is here to experience your sword skills." Hearing Xiao Xiangzi announce his name, a trace of disgust flashed across Song Qingshu's face. He thought that imperial concubine Xiao Xiang was a peerless beauty of her generation. His name was similar to hers. It was a form of humiliation. Therefore, he didn't show any mercy. He used the tip of his foot to hook up a bench and kicked it towards him. While Xiao Xiangzi was waving his staff, he thought of many possibilities, such as how Song Qingshu would deal with his attack. Who would have thought that while he was still so far away, a black shadow suddenly appeared in front of him. With a pung sound, the bench was smashed into pieces. Xiao Xiangzi's eyes were dazed from the impact. It was as if he was drunk and spun around on the same spot. It looked like he would lose the ability to fight for a short period of time. When Yin Kashi was fighting with Xiao Long Nu, his wrist was injured by her. Now his martial arts were greatly reduced. He knew that if he fought alone, he wouldn't be this mysterious person's opponent. He always acted cautiously. At the same time as Xiao Xiangzi attacked, he waved his golden dragon whip towards Song Qingshu's body. Who would have thought that Xiao Xiangzi would be attacked halfway? Yin Kashi wanted to withdraw his golden dragon whip, but it was too late. Song Qingshu held the whip between his fingers. He saw that the whip was decorated with jewels, diamonds, and white jade. He smiled and said, "This weapon is quite expensive." As soon as he finished speaking, his fingers shook the whip slightly. Yin Kashi felt a strange force coming from the whip. The web between his thumb and forefinger split open. He couldn't hold it anymore. He heard a ding-dong-dong-dong sound. Gold, silver, and jewels scattered all over the floor. The golden dragon whip, which was decorated with jewels, was shattered into pieces. Yin Kashi didn't even have time to feel sorry for himself. The strange force coming from the whip made him retreat 3 or 4 steps before he could stand up. His face was like gold paper. Although there was a smile on his face, it was more miserable than happy. He felt as if his internal organs had been flipped over. He stood there, not daring to circulate his chi or move half a step. It was as if he was frozen. The dissatisfaction on Zhao Min's face became stronger and stronger. She thought to herself, why are the masters under Kublai so useless? On the other hand, the master of Jinggang, Taoist Baisheng, Jinluan Fuwang, and the others were shocked. They knew the martial arts of Xiaoxiangzi and the others very well. It wouldn't be difficult for them to defeat any one of them. But if the three of them were to join forces, it was hard to say who would win. Not to mention the fact that the three masters lost their ability to fight in just one move. On the other side, Ouyang Feng and Qiu Qianren looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. With their cultivation, they could naturally see how magical Song Qingshu's three ordinary moves were in the blink of an eye. It looked easy and simple, but if they were in his shoes, they wouldn't be able to do it as easily as he did. With this delay from the three of them, the master of Jin Kong School and Taoist priest Bai Shun had already reacted and blocked Song Qingshu from the front and back. Jinluan Fuwang's eyes also flickered as he eyed Song Qingshu covetously. The Xianming elders didn't move. Firstly, they had to protect Zhao Min and Huazheng. Secondly, their master had already made a move. It wasn't convenient for them to move. Oh, Song Qingshu's eyebrows twitched. I didn't think I'd have to trouble so many grandmasters to fight against me. Taoist Baisheng and the master Jingang's faces turned red. With their status, even if they fought Song Qingshu one-on-one, they would inevitably be labeled as bullying the weak. However, they could see that Song Qingshu's martial arts were unfathomable. Although they weren't afraid of fighting him one-on-one, they knew that one of them wouldn't be able to stop him. Thus, they left their seats at the same time. On the other side, Ouyang Feng laughed. I hate people who bully the weak. My hands are a little itchy today. If you don't mind, how about we fight together? The expressions of the Mongolians changed. Before this, some of them might not have thought much of Western poison, but after witnessing the might of Ouyang Feng's attack, even though it was a sneak attack, their Jinluan Fuwang was indeed injured by him. There was no way they wouldn't be afraid. Song Qingshu was secretly amused. He thought that he and Ouyang Feng were really fated to be on the same side as him, even though he was wearing a mask. If that's the case, I'll do as you say. But who will you choose as your opponent, Mr. Ouyang? With a free fighter, Song Qingshu naturally wouldn't be so stupid as to force himself to fight against both of them. Ouyang Feng thought that Taoist priest hunter damages has been famous for decades. He's really unfathomable. There's no need for me to take the risk. I'll just let Shimin Chue Shui, who I also don't know how strong he is, deal with him. I'll observe from the side, and I'll be able to find out more about the two of them. On the other hand, it's the master of Jinggang. Even though his martial arts are also extraordinary, based on the martial arts he displayed just now, I might not be able to win for sure, but at least I won't lose. When she saw that the people from the Jin Kingdom were involved, Zhao Min instantly felt a headache coming on. With their strength, whether it was against Shimin Chue Shui or the people from the Jin Kingdom, they would definitely win. However, now that the two sides had formed an alliance, it was hard to say who would emerge victorious. Zhao Min quickly calculated in her mind. Since it was 2 against Taoist priest hunter damages and the master of Jinggang, they would not be able to determine the victor within a short period of time. They still had the Xianming elders, Jinluan Fuwang, and other masters on their side. It should not be a problem for them to deal with the Jin Kingdom's Iron Palm expert. However, now that Jinluan Fuwang was injured, and Xiao Long knew and the others would not sit idly by, they might not be able to gain any advantage in a chaotic battle. Zhao Min shook her head. Just as she was about to have Taoist priest hunter damages and the others let Shimin Chue Shui and the others leave, she suddenly raised her head and saw a group of people coming in from the entrance of the inn. Her beautiful eyes immediately shone with a strange light. She was immediately confident that she would win. Chapter 373. Great King Xiao, I didn't expect to see you here. Zhao Min stood up and saluted the man. Each of the Wulin world's guests in the main hall had already realized Zhao Min's distinguished status. Seeing her courteously greet the big man who came in, they all turned their heads to see who it was. The man was tall and strong, around 30 years of age. He had thick eyebrows, big eyes, a high nose, and a wide mouth. He had a square face and looked very powerful. Seeing the familiar figure next to Xiao Feng, Song Qing-shu was surprised. Yellow Nancian? Seeing her respectfully standing half a step behind the man and thinking about how Zhao Min addressed him, he couldn't help but think, could it be Xiao Feng? Xiao Feng was also startled by the tense atmosphere in the inn. However, he was bold and daring, so he directly passed through the lobby and arrived beside Zhao Min. Ever since we parted last time, you still look as graceful as ever. This is? Hua Zheng, who was sitting beside Zhao Min, clearly had a high status. Xiao Feng was startled. Zhao Min held Hua Zheng's hand and smiled. Aunt, let me introduce you. This is Liao's Southern Courtyard's Great King, Xiao Feng. Great King Xiao, this is my aunt, Princess Hua Zheng. So it's the world-famous Great King Xiao. Hua Zheng's eyes brightened. Although she had been depressed these years because of Guojing, she was still a girl from the Mongolian grasslands. Respecting heroes was an instinct. In the past few years, Xiao Feng's name could be said to have shaken the world. His martial arts were invincible in the Central Plains. Later, he took the head of a general from an army of 10,000 and saved the emperor of Liao, Yalu Hongji. He was given the title of Southern Courtyard's King. After many years of expeditions, he saved Liao, which was on the verge of collapse. Now, Liao could stand between the Jin and Qing dynasties without falling. Greetings, Princess. Xiao Feng's first impression of the heroic Hua Zheng was very good. Who is this young lady? When Zhao Min saw Yelu Nancian standing behind Xiao Feng, she was instantly captivated by her unique temperament. Although Yelu Nancian was beautiful, the deepest impression she gave others was that she was like an unsheathed sword. This is my Liao's Cheng and Princess, Yelu Nancian. Xiao Feng introduced with a smile. Beside him, Yelu Nancian nodded in acknowledgement. I've long heard that Princess is the most outstanding young master in the great Liao dynasty. Now that I've seen you in person, you truly deserve your reputation. Zhao Min's duty in Mongolia was to take care of the various kingdoms' ministers, as well as matters related to the Jianghu. Therefore, when she heard Yelu Nancian's name, the relevant information quickly surfaced in her mind. Compared to the many experts under the Ruyang Palace's banner, they are not worth mentioning. Although Yelu Nancian's words were modest, her attitude was neither servile nor overbearing. From the moment she walked into the inn, whether it was the frequency of her breathing or her calm demeanor, no one really doubted her martial arts attainments. By the way, when I came in just now, I saw that Princess's subordinates were about to fight with someone. What is going on? After some small talk, Xiao Feng threw out the question in his mind. I accidentally revealed my identity, and these Jin experts took the opportunity to hold me hostage to threaten the Ruyang Palace. Zhao Min said pitifully. She knew that the Mongolian Liao alliance alone was not enough, but if the Khitan's hatred for the Jurchens was used, Xiao Feng would not sit idly by. As for the mysterious master, Shimin Chue Shue, she naturally categorized him as one of the masters of the Jin kingdom. Jin. Xiao Feng's eyes widened. Back then, Liao was almost destroyed by the Jin, and its fate was similar to that of the northern Song dynasty. Many imperial concubines and princesses were kidnapped by the Jin, and even the imperial tombs of Liao were dug out by the greedy Jin. Every Khitan hated the Jin to the bone. After Xiao Feng and Wu Sangue stopped fighting, he heard the news that the Manchurian Qing dynasty was preparing to completely eradicate the Golden Snake Battalion. The Qing dynasty had always been the Jin's most solid ally, and had been fighting with Liao for many years. Xiao Feng certainly did not want to see the Qing dynasty eliminate its internal troubles. It just so happened that Yelu Nancian was on the way to Shandong, waiting for an opportunity. When she passed by Xiao Feng's territory, Xiao Feng remembered that he had not set foot in the Central Plains for many years after leaving the beggar sect, so he came with her to Qiao village. Along the way, the two discussed the current situation for a long time, and finally agreed that no matter what, they should help the Golden Snake Battalion and leave a big tumor in the Manchurian Qing. Hearing Zhao Min's words, Xiao Feng looked at the Jin people, and when he saw the appearance of the man in embroidered clothes, he could not help but be shocked and angry. Wan Yin Liang, give me your life. His figure flashed, and he attacked in that direction with his palm. It turned out that the man in embroidered clothes was the Jin general Wan Yin Liang, who had often led troops to invade Liao. Xiao Feng had led troops to confront him several times because the Jin army was strong and because Wan Yin Liang was proficient in the art of war, but in the end, he did not gain any advantage. In addition, it was Wan Yin Liang's father, Wan Yin Zhonggan, who had led the Jin army to loot the imperial mausoleum of Liao. Now that he had come out lightly, how could Xiao Feng let go of this heaven-sent opportunity? Seeing Xiao Feng attack from so far away, Qiu Qianren, who was guarding Wan Yin Liang, did not think much of it. Who knew that in the blink of an eye, an earth-shattering force would come at him? Qiu Qianren was shocked and quickly used his iron palm to block it. Whether it was Qiu Qianren's iron palm or Xiao Feng's 18 dragons subduing palms, they were both the most ferocious palm techniques in the world. The force produced by their fight was even more violent than the one produced by Ouyang Feng and Jinluan Fuwang. The nearby tables, chairs, and floorboards were all shattered. Qiu Qianren used the recoil force to retreat a few feet and stood in front of Wan Yin Liang to protect him. At this time, the other guards finally reacted and all drew their weapons and rushed forward. To be able to serve as Wan Yin Liang's guards, they were all highly skilled martial artists. Who would have thought that Xiao Feng's fierce expression would cause a Jin Kingdom warrior to vomit blood and fall to the ground with every move he made? Qiu Qianren was shocked after the exchange of blows. His blood was in turmoil, and he felt like vomiting, but Xiao Feng continued to fight with the guards as if nothing had happened. North Qiao Peak's reputation is indeed well-deserved. A thought flashed through Qiu Qianren's mind. He couldn't just watch as these elite guards were killed by Xiao Feng as if he was chopping melons and vegetables. He quickly adjusted his internal energy and rushed forward to meet Xiao Feng. Seeing that Xiao Feng was not far away, Ouyang Feng was both shocked and angry. He could no longer care about the guardian of the Vajra school and took a big step forward, striking towards Xiao Feng's back. At this time, Yilu Nancian had also arrived with her sword in hand. In truth, she had followed Xiao Feng the moment she saw him move, but Xiao Feng's speed was too fast, making it seem as if she had been delayed for a long time. Seeing Ouyang Feng's sneak attack from behind, Yilu Nancian quickly raised her sword to meet the attack. Seeing the sharp sword coming at him, Ouyang Feng dodged to the side, his palm striking the sword. A loud dragon's roar resounded, and the sword in Yilu Nancian's hand actually snapped in half. Ouyang Feng's other hand arrived in a flash. Yilu Nancian gritted her teeth and stabbed forward with her broken sword. Palm and sword collided. Ouyang Feng was unharmed, but Yilu Nancian felt a sharp pain in her palm, losing her grip on the sword and sending it flying back. Fortunately, Yilu Nancian's movement skill was good. She somersaulted in midair, avoiding the fate of being seriously injured by her own sword. Not far away, the Xianming elders' expressions changed, quickly striking out with their palms to deflect the incoming broken sword. After Yilu Nancian's interruption, Xiao Feng was able to free up his hands, taking advantage of the gap between him and Qiu Qianren to exchange more than 10 moves with Ouyang Feng. In the end, taking advantage of the rebounding force, he grabbed Yilu Nancian's shoulder and returned to Zhao Min's side. Chapter 374. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. By the time the people in the hall reacted, the two sides had already separated. The only difference was that the Jin Kingdom people were in a sorry state, while Xiao Feng was able to move in and out of the battle with ease. Yilu Nancian looked at Ouyang Feng unwillingly. She didn't expect that she would lose to Ouyang Feng in one move. Although the main reason was because she had to protect Xiao Feng's flank, she had to give up her exquisite swordsmanship and take Ouyang Feng's attack head-on. But a loss was a loss. For the first time, Yilu Nanxian felt the difference between her and those top experts in a life and death battle. This old man has not been involved in worldly affairs for so many years. I didn't expect such a young expert to appear in Jianghu. Northern Xiaofeng, you truly live up to your name. Ouyang Feng looked at Xiao Feng with a serious expression. Xiao Feng's 18 dragon subduing palms seemed to have surpassed his rival of many years, Hong Qigong. In a life and death battle, it was hard to say who would win. The combat power that Ouyang Feng had displayed in that split second just now had startled Song Qingshu in his heart. He hadn't expected that Ouyang Feng, after recovering his consciousness, would actually be so much more powerful than when he was on the Divine Dragon Island. Originally, according to his estimation of the strength of all the martial artists in the world, Ouyang Feng shouldn't be able to defeat Xiao Feng. Who would have thought that the two of them would actually be evenly matched in that short exchange just now? In the original novel, Ouyang Feng used the 9-yin manual to obtain the title of the world's #1 martial artist. Unfortunately, his mind became muddled and he lived in a daze for more than 10 years. Finally, on the summit of Mount Hua, he fought with Hong Qigong for 3 days and 3 nights before both died of exhaustion. Based on this, Song Qingshu thought that Ouyang Feng's martial arts were at most equal to Hong Qigong's, or even weaker than Hong Qigong when he used the dog-beating stick technique. But after personally experiencing the changes in Ouyang Feng's strength, Song Qingshu couldn't help but sigh. When Ouyang Feng was at his peak, Western Poison's strength was not something that the crazy old man could compare to. Toad Stance and Iron Palm? You two are Western Poison Ouyang Feng and Iron Palm Water Drifter Qiu Qianren? Xiao Feng had roamed the world for more than 30 years. Whether it was the beggar sect elders or the Shaolin monks, none of them were his match. He didn't expect to meet 2 people with similar strength. King Zhao's eyesight is pretty good. Seeing that Xiao Feng had no intention of making a move for the time being, Ouyang Feng stood with his hands clasped behind his back. At their level, battles to the death rarely occurred. After all, if you wanted to kill your opponent, you would have to pay a heavy price. Beside him, Qiu Qianren's face was ashen. His hands, which were hidden in his sleeves, were trembling slightly. After he had mastered the Iron Palm, he had thought that he could compete with Wang Chongyang in the past. Who would have thought that he would be at a disadvantage in front of a junior today? He felt ashamed. 2 dignified Han people, as grandmasters of a generation, why are you willing to become the dogs of the Jin? Xiao Feng angrily rebuked. In his heart, he was clear that Wan Yanliang was protected by Ouyang Feng and Qiu Qianren, so he probably wouldn't be able to kill him. Ouyang Feng smiled faintly, not bothering to explain himself. Qiu Qianren couldn't help but sneer. Weren't you the beggar clan leader before? Why did you come to the Khitan Empire and become Yilu Hongji's dog? I was fooled by fate and was unable to choose my blood. How could I dare to compare myself to the 2 of you? Xiao Feng's voice was loud and clear, and his words carried a sense of righteousness. Wan Yanliang smiled, stood up, and said, Brother Xiao has misunderstood. Mr. Ouyang and Mr. Qiu are both honored guests of this little prince's residence. This little prince has always treated you like an esteemed minister and is afraid that I might not be able to serve you well. Speaking of which, the 2 of you can be considered my teachers. Calling you a dog is nothing more than slandering someone with ulterior motives. Brother Xiao is wise and mighty, so you naturally won't lower yourself to the same level as those lowly people. Seeing Ouyang Feng and Qiu Qianren's happy expressions, Song Qingshu couldn't help but snicker. This Wan Yanliang really knows how to win people's hearts. Speaking of which, in the original novel, wasn't Ouyang Feng supposed to serve the Prince of Zhao, Wanyan Honglai? Where did the Wanyan Honglai of this world go? On the other hand, Zhao Min was furious. When Xiao Feng attacked Wan Yanliang, if Jin Gang's headmaster and Taoist priest Bai Shun had acted at the same time, Wan Yanliang wouldn't have survived. Although Zhao Min was quick-witted, she didn't quite understand the psychology of these martial arts masters. In the eyes of Jin Gang's headmaster and Taoist priest Bai Shun, if Xiao Feng and Qiu Qianren had acted just now, it would have been difficult to avoid a life-and-death struggle. Both Ouyang Feng and Qiu Qianren were experts on par with them. If they weren't careful, even if they didn't die, they would at least lose a layer of skin. It was better to let Xiao Feng take the lead and fight with them first. When both sides were injured, the two of them could then leisurely reap the benefits. Zhao Min thought that it was because the two of them hadn't received her orders, so she stood up and said to Xiao Feng, "King Xiao, why don't you and I join hands and capture Wang Yinliang?" Xiao Feng's expression changed. It would be difficult for him to defeat Ouyang Feng, Qiu Qianren, and a group of Jin Kingdom experts by himself. However, if the experts of the Ruyang Palace joined in, then he would have absolute confidence. Ouyang Feng and the others' expressions changed. It was already difficult for them to deal with the experts of the Ruyang Palace alone. If the valiant Xiao Feng joined in, then they would be in danger. "Mr. Shiman, this princess has put you on the same side as us and wants to get rid of us together. What do you think?" Wang Yinliang didn't panic. He immediately found the key figure, Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu was stunned. He didn't expect that he would suddenly become so popular. Although Wang Yinliang sounded like he was asking, it was obvious that he wanted to drag him into this. However, Song Qingshu didn't want to get involved in this mess. With his lightness skill, it wouldn't be difficult for him to bring Xiao Long Nu and Icy Snow away safely. Moreover, the two women's lightness skill was very good. When he noticed the tense atmosphere in the hall, Song Qingshu suddenly changed his mind. Wang Yinliang was an extremely important person in the Jin Kingdom. Not only was he of high status, but he was also skilled in the art of war. If he died here, it would be equivalent to cutting off one of the arms of the Jin Kingdom. If this continued, no one would be able to control the Mongolian kingdom. In Song Qingshu's mind, the Qin Kingdom, the Jin Kingdom, Liao, and even the Southern Song dynasty were just passers-by. His ultimate enemy was the Mongolian kingdom. Even if the other countries were temporarily enemies, they could temporarily ally with each other to deal with the Mongolian kingdom. The most famous army in the world was naturally the Mongolian Xie Shui, followed by the Jin Kingdom's Meng and Mok, and the Manchu Qing Eight Banners army. If the Jin Kingdom and the Manchu Qing Kingdom were defeated, the Mongolian kingdom would be invincible. Now, the actual ruler of the Manchu Qing Kingdom was Song Qingshu. He naturally didn't want to see anything happen to his ally, the Jin Kingdom, because he still needed them to help him deal with the Mongolian Iron Cavalry in the future. After making up his mind, Song Qingshu smiled and asked the two girls beside him, "Which side do you think I should help?" Icy Snow was stunned. Although she didn't like the Jin Kingdom, the Mongolian kingdom was obviously going to harm them. If she sat back and watched Zhao Min and her party deal with Wang Yinliang, the three of them would be in danger when the Mongolian kingdom was free. You just killed that Taoist priest and offended the princess. Naturally, you can only help the other side. "Miss Long Nu, what do you think?" Song Qingshu looked at Xiao Long Nu. "I'll help Ouyang Feng." Xiao Long Nu said coldly. Her logic was simple. Zhao Min and her party had tried to stop her from killing Zhao Zijing multiple times. She also had Jinluan Fuang, an evil person, under her command. Naturally, she was a bad person. On the Jin Kingdom's side, Wang Yinliang had just given her a sword and Ouyang Feng had saved her. Naturally, they were good people. "I see." Song Qingshu shrugged and looked at Wang Yinliang with a smile. "Looks like we have to work together to fight against the enemy." With the help of Shimin Chue Shui, Ouyang Feng was instantly emboldened. He looked at Zhao Min and the others and laughed. "Do you want to fight one-on-one? Or do you want to come with me together?" Zhao Min thought to herself. Logically speaking, they had the advantage in terms of strength with Xiao Feng's party. However, this kind of thing couldn't be done simply by adding and subtracting. If they attacked together, the other party would know that they had no hope of surviving and would fight to the death. Many of the experts on her side came from Kublai's camp and were not under the direct command of the Ruyang Palace. When they fought later, they would definitely have their own plans and would want to take the opportunity to exhaust the other party's strength. With the balance of power between them and the Jin Kingdom, it was hard to say who would win. After understanding all this, Zhao Min smiled sweetly. "We're not facing off against each other right now. Since we are in Jianghu, we should follow the rules of Jianghu. Let's each choose 5 experts, and we'll win 3 out of 5 matches. If you win, I will immediately leave with my people. If we are lucky enough to win, you will hand Wanyan Liang over to me. What do you think?" Ouyang Feng and Qiu Qianren looked at each other. They could understand why Zhao Min would choose such a stupid method when she had the upper hand. "Mr. Ouyang, you're only guest of Wanyan Liang's residence. You don't have a master-servant relationship with him. If you fight as much as you can, you'll have done your best for him. I can promise you that no matter who wins, I will let you go." Zhao Min continued. She thought to herself, these old foxes like Taoist priest Bai Sheng and the King Kong faction usually don't put in much effort. However, they value their reputation very much. In this kind of Jianghu competition, I don't have to worry about them not doing their best. Wanyan Liang secretly thought that Zhao Min's actions had completely destroyed the morale that he had painstakingly built up. Now that his subordinates had a choice, why would they fight to the death? He understood that if he insisted on fighting as a group, he would lose the morale of his subordinates. Since things had come to this, he didn't want to disappoint his ruthless character. He laughed loudly and said, "Mr. Ouyang, you don't have to worry. I'm already very grateful that you are willing to compete with those Mongolian experts. If I lose later, I will be the one to die here. Please leave." The tragic tone in his voice made Song Qingshu nod his head. This Wanyan Liang had retreated in order to advance. In the blink of an eye, he had reinvigorated the morale of his subordinates. Compared to Zhao Min, he could be said to be the brightest. An old fox like Ouyang Feng wouldn't be tricked by few words. However, he remembered that Wanyan Liang had always treated him politely and made up his mind that he would do his best to protect Wanyan Liang's life. However, when he looked around, he was surprised to find that he couldn't gather 5 top-notch experts. Chapter 375. Ouyang Feng calculated in his mind. Qiu Qianren is 1, that Shimin Chuexiu is 1, I'm 1, and Xiaolong Nu is barely half. Although her swordsmanship is exquisite, she'll be at a disadvantage if she's up against a peerless master with a weak internal energy. I could have used her to deal with Jinluan Fuwang, but Jinluan Fuwang already knows how to defeat her after receiving Zhao Min's hint. Including her, there's only 4 people. The last one, Ouyang Feng's gaze subconsciously shifted to Icy Snow, who was standing next to Song Qingshu. In his mind, Icy Snow was Xiaolong Nu's senior apprentice sister, so her martial arts should not be too bad. Moreover, since she's with Shimin Chuexiu, her martial arts might be even better than he imagined. Noticing Ouyang Feng's gaze, Song Qingshu immediately guessed what he was thinking. Although Icy Snow's martial arts were good, she might not be able to deal with these peerless masters. But now was not the time to boost their opponent's morale and diminish their own. Song Qingshu nodded and said, "Your side will send 2 people, and our side will send 3 people. As long as you can win 1 round, we won't lose this bet." When everyone in the lobby heard this, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. They didn't understand why he was so confident. Even if he could win 1 match, could these 2 delicate little girls also win one? Everyone had seen Xiaolong Nu's martial arts. Although her swordsmanship was exquisite, her cultivation was limited. It would be difficult for her to win 1 round. Could it be that the other woman was also a peerless master? Zhao Min had the same doubts in her mind. She quickly gathered her subordinates for a discussion. Priest Baisu said, "On our side, we have me, King Xiao, Jinluan Fuwang, and my 2 disciples, Lu Zhangke or He Biwang, to fight the remaining 2. Xiao Xiangzi and the others looked angry when they heard this. However, they had just lost several times and lost face, so they couldn't say much. Priest Hunter Damages said with a proud expression, "That's right. This old man and King Xiao can win 2 rounds. As long as everyone can win 1 round, we will win." Looks of displeasure flashed across the faces of the headmaster of the Vajra Order and Jinluan Fuwang. Jinluan Fuwang was still all right. After all, he had suffered some internal injuries from Ouyang Feng's sneak attack. He did not have the confidence to win, but the headmaster of the Vajra Order was inwardly enraged. He thought to himself, I'm of the same rank as you, but you think you'll win for sure, yet you suspect that I'll lose. This is ridiculous. Zhao Min had no time to worry about the undercurrents between them. Instead, she frowned and said, we already have an 80% chance of winning. I'm just afraid that they will use the strategy of Tianji's horse race, using the inferior to the superior. That will be troublesome. Everyone agreed with him. Xiao Feng pondered for a moment, then said, why don't we make an agreement with them? We'll arrange the order of appearance first, and we'll take it out at the same time. We won't be able to change it in the meantime. Even if the other side wants to race Tianji, they won't be able to do anything. Zhao Min's beautiful eyes lit up. Xiao Wangdao really has a brilliant plan. After listening to Zhao Min's request, Song Qingshu smiled slightly. No problem. Next, he discussed the order of appearance with Ouyang Feng and the others. Young Master Shiman, are you sure you want to do this? Ouyang Feng's expression was serious. Do you have a better idea? Song Qingshu said indifferently. Qiu Qianren also frowned. It's not that we don't believe you. It's just that this is too shocking. Whether I can win or not is my problem. As long as you can win one round, it will reduce the pressure on me. Song Qingshu said indifferently. Ouyang Feng and Qiu Qianren looked at each other. In the end, it was Ouyang Feng who nodded. Since you insist, then let's do it. On the other side, Zhao Min and Xiao Feng were also seriously discussing the order of appearance. We definitely can't put Xiao Wangda and Priest Baisang in the last two. Otherwise, if they accidentally win 3 rounds, you guys won't have a chance to appear. Xiao Feng nodded. We also can't put all of us in the first 3 rounds. If they really use the strategy of Tianji's horse race and use the 2 weakest people to compete with us, they might really win 3 rounds. Sect Master Jingang snorted. Does Xiao Wangda look down on me? Zhao Min hurriedly mediated. Sect Master is thinking too much. Xiao Wangda is only considering the worst-case scenario. Fuwang is injured and neither of the Xianming elders is confident of winning against Qiu Qianren. Ouyang Feng is the head of the 5 uniques, and that Shimin Chue Shui is unfathomable. Even if Xiao Wangda and Priest Baisang were to go against each other, they would only have a 50-50 chance of winning. It's never a bad thing to be careful. Although Sect Master Jin Gang was somewhat indignant, he knew that what she said was the truth. The worst-case scenario would be Xiao Feng and Priest Baisang going against the 2 women. Then he or Jinluan Fuwang would go against Ouyang Feng and Shimin Chue Shui. The Xianming elders would go against Qiu Qianren. They really might lose 3 rounds, so we definitely can't lose the 3rd round, Zhao Min said in a low voice and quickly assigned the people. Then I'll have to trouble King Xiao for the 3rd round, Priest Baisang for the 4th round, and the rest. Zhao Min's gaze swept across the group, and she immediately began to ponder. Sect Master Jingang was worried that he might not have a chance to show his face if he fell last, so he hurriedly volunteered. I'll go for the 1st round. Zhao Min turned to look at Jinluan Fuwang. That's good too. Then I'll have to trouble you for the 2nd round, Grand Preceptor. Jinluan Fuwang nodded, but his expression was a little ugly. If he had not suffered an internal injury, he would have been able to win a round by now. He had really embarrassed himself today. After the 2 sides finished discussing, they quickly exchanged names. Looking at the order of the other side's names, Song Qingshu smiled slightly. It's pretty much what I expected. However, Zhao Min's expression changed because the first 3 names on the Jin Kingdom's list were all the same. Shimin Chue Shui. Outrageous. How can the same person fight so many times? The Mongolians immediately shouted. You didn't say that we can't do this, so why can't we? Song Qingshu replied. Daoist Baishun quietly said to Zhao Min, Princess, don't worry. Although this Shimin Chue Shui is unfathomable, he has to fight 3 rounds in a row. Even if Sect Master Jingang can't win, he will be able to use up a lot of his strength. Jinluan Fuwang and King Xiao will naturally win. Zhao Min also thought the same. No matter how strong Shimin Chue Shui was, it was impossible for him to fight 3 experts in a row. Soon, she had a question in her mind. If he was going to fight 3 rounds, why didn't he split them up? Why did he have to fight 3 rounds in a row? Song Qing-shu speculated that Zhao Min would place Xiao Feng as the third. If the weakest person on their side fought against Xiao Feng, then the odds of winning this bet would be much higher. However, he had admired Xiao Feng's actual combat ability from the novels he read in his previous life. Now that his martial arts had reached such a high level, ordinary experts were no longer able to pique his interest. In his heart, he found it hard to suppress the thought that he must fight to his heart's content with Xiao Feng. In a moment of heroism, he chose to fight 3 consecutive battles. Stinking brat. I'll teach you a lesson, you arrogant brat who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Sect Master Jin Gang snorted angrily. He had already decided that he would use his Hercules finger to crush Xiao Feng's wrist, and see how Xiao Feng was going to use his sword in the future. Naturally, he could not continue with the next round. Winning 1 round was equivalent to winning 3 rounds. How delightful. Are you going to teach me a lesson with your mouth? Song Qing-shu smiled disdainfully. Sect Master Jingang's bald head immediately flushed red. He said angrily, I'm your senior. I'm just letting you fight first. Oh, Song Qing-shu sighed. If I make the first move, I'm afraid you won't have the chance to fight anymore. The crowd only saw a blur before Song Qing-shu's long sword pierced into Sect Master Jingang's neck. Sect Master. Zhao Min's beautiful face turned pale. Priest Bai Sang, who was beside her, quickly comforted her. Don't worry, Your Highness. Sect Master's indestructible Vajra divine technique has reached perfection. That sword won't be able to hurt him. Zhao Min focused her gaze and saw that there was indeed no trace of blood on Sect Master Jingang's neck. Sect Master Jingang's sword had not pierced his skin. Sect Master Jingang's face flushed red. After witnessing Xiao Feng's ghostly body technique, he had already put up 120% of his mental defenses. How could he have known that Xiao Feng would still be able to pierce his vital point? If it were not for the fact that he had studied the indestructible Vajra divine technique for decades and had his vital energy automatically circulating around his body, he would have died on the spot. Sect Master Jin Gang used his Herculean diamond finger to deflect the long sword from his neck. Then, he swiftly jabbed his other finger at the major acupoint on Song Qing-shu's chest. Song Qing-shu's figure flashed and returned to his original spot. The webbing between his thumb and index finger was slightly numb from the finger force that came from the sword. He could not help but praise Herculean diamond finger. It truly lives up to its reputation. Sect Master Jin Gang no longer dared to underestimate the young man in front of him after his attack missed. He circulated his indestructible Vajra divine technique with all his might and solemnly guarded himself. Priest Bai Sang nodded inwardly and whispered to Zhao Min, I was initially worried that Sect Master Jin Gang would attack in a fit of rage. Now, I'm finally relieved. Zhao Min stared at the 2 people in the field and asked why. Priest Bai Sang explained, as long as Sect Master Jin Gang doesn't advance rashly, he's already in an invincible position with his indestructible Vajra divine technique. When the opponent attacks, he can find an opportunity to counterattack with his Herculean diamond finger. If he can land a single jab, I'm afraid the outcome of the battle will be decided. Xiao Feng, who was standing to the side, had a grave expression on his face. Given Sect Master Jingang's movement technique, I'm afraid it'll be very difficult for Sect Master Jin Gang to hit him. Miss Longnu, I'm sorry. I took your sword again. Song Qing-shu's first reaction after returning to his original spot was to apologize to Xiao Longnu. Xiao Longnu's face heated up for no reason. She said indifferently, you can just take it and use it. However, she felt somewhat resentful in her heart. If you wanted to borrow it from me earlier, I wouldn't have refused. Why did you take it from me? Only then did Song Qing-shu turn around to look at Sect Master Jin Gang. Are you certain that I can't break your indestructible Vajra divine body? Sect Master Jin Gang was shocked, but his expression did not change. For hundreds of years, there have been countless experts who have tried to break the indestructible Vajra divine body. Unfortunately, none of them succeeded. Your Excellency is naturally no exception. Is that so? Song Qing-shu smiled noncommittally. That's because they don't understand structural mechanics and Hooke's law. I didn't know much about it in the first place, but unfortunately, I happened to read Prison Break. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.